Sorry, we're going to call this public meeting to order. It is 6:50. This is a public hearing for the amendment to the Enfield Town Code, Section 14-212, display of street numbers. Public hearing ground rules. A public hearing has been scheduled to allow interested citizens an opportunity to express their opinion regarding the proposed revisions to the Enfield Town Code, Chapter 14, Article 2, Section 14-212, display of street numbers. Roll call, please.
Counselor Arnone.
Here.
Counselor Bosco. Counselor Sakala.
Here.
Counselor Grisati.
Here.
Counselor Davis.
Here.
Counselor Jenny.
Here.
Counselor Fall.
Here.
Mayor Ludwig.
Here.
Counselor Muller.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Here.
Counselor Ungary.
Here.
There's 10 members present, 1 is absent.
The following notice of public hearing was published in the Hartford Courant Friday, April 6, 2018. The Town of Enfield legal notice public hearing. The Enfield Town Council will hold a public hearing in the Enfield Town Hall, Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, on Monday, April 16, 2018, at 6:45, to allow interested citizens an opportunity to express their opinions regarding the proposed revisions to the Enfield Town Code, Chapter 14, Article 2, Section 14-212, display of street numbers, verified by Susan Olnicki, Town Clerk, on April 3rd, 2018. The ground rules of the public hearing. There is no time limit, but I ask that each person please not take up too much time to let everyone have an opportunity to speak. After each person who desires has one chance to speak, I shall permit those individuals desire a second chance. For those individuals who desire to speak a second time, I shall permit those individuals desire a third, fourth, etc. Please refrain from personalities. Would anyone like to speak on this public hearing? It has to be specific about the change in street numbers.
You think we could have an explanation as to what it is?
Well, Brian, can you give a brief?
Yes, with respect to this particular public hearing, the item in question is actually an update to the town code, which would bring the respective provisions of the town code on the matter of displaying address numbers in compliance with state code. This is an item that's coming out of the Department of Development Services, so I don't know if the director has anything else that he would like to add, but it's more of a compliance issue with.
It's for new properties, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
What is the change?
So highlighted within the information provided to council is effectively they're going to make the number slightly larger, and then they're providing for the background and color background contrast, and then also with respect to the type of script, the Arabic script for the letters or for the numbers. Excuse me. So those are the real big changes.
Anything else, sir? No, all set. Would anyone like to speak on this public hearing? Sir.
My name is Terrence Lynch.
Sir, you got
front.
to come up to the microphone,
I
sorry.
can do that.
Just your name and address, please, sir. Thank you.
I don't, Peter.
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. My name is Terrence Lynch. I live at 73 The Laurels. And first of all, I hope somewhere here, and I didn't look around, but I hope somewhere here there is a written description so some people can look at it, because I've never seen the description. And I'm wondering if these changes are also going to affect the condominium complexes, because I don't know that either. So I guess I don't have a whole lot to say, because I don't know really what's going on, other than there was a public hearing about the code. And I think that's not very effective if you're really looking for public participation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, is there a copy of?
Yeah, we have a copy. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak on this public hearing? Mike, real quick, on any impact on condominiums? Mind answering?
Only as it impacts new ones that are being constructed, but at this point, no.
Okay.
I have a question. Could you give more detail than he did? We're going from 3 inches to 4 inches?
Right.
Black on white, what are the changes? He just brought it up. Nobody knows.
Those are the changes. That's what the state changed
You
the
tell me,
standard.
because they want to hear it too.
Right. So the state changes the standard for what the addressing is, and that's what their standards have been increased to. They're looking at larger numbers they want more of a contrast than what we have had, I guess, in the past. And so it's adopted statewide now, so.
That's not specific. Are you going from 2 to 6? What are the numbers?
I see what you're saying. It's my understanding it's going from 3 inches to 5 inches, maybe 6. But I don't know the maximum height on that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And when will we know that, so that the people that are supposed to do this, they will know it?
So if you'll pardon me, so all of this information is available online in the packet and is accessible from the links that are online in the packet.
They don't know that.
So to the point that the information was available prior to tonight's meeting, yes, that information was available. The notice which was published in the paper provided direction to the clerk's office where that information was also available. If you would like, at the time of the legislation, we'll be more than happy to read in detail, if you feel that it's appropriate, the language that will be changed at that point in time. But from the perspective that we were asked to provide a general summary of the change, we did do that. However, more than happy to provide the detailed information with respect to the legislation that is being changed at the time the legislation is
I think
introduced.
that's necessary for the people that are watching this on television, because they have no clue.
If that is the will of the council, sir, we'll be more than happy to read that information into the record at that time.
I would like to see that happen. If not tonight, some other time.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Anyone else like to speak for the council? This is on a public hearing. Sir, would you like to come back up?
Yeah, well, just for 1 second, just
Yep, come on up.
for some clarification. I assume if the state is requiring this, then it has to be for public safety. That would be just the way my brain works. And if that's the case, then why would this not be for all residences and commercial buildings and not just, as the director just said, new construction? And if the council is going to vote on this, when are they going to vote? And then how much time do we have to make changes? Or are you going to embellish the law or just go to state law or those types of things? Do we have any answers or no?
I can't have a back and forth with you, but we can answer that question in the general meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yep. Mike, maybe you can answer that question? Yeah.
To the best of my ability. So when the state establishes the standard, that's what we would adopt, and that's what we're waiting for.
And the
Okay.
state statute doesn't make existing houses change, correct?
That's my understanding of
Right.
it.
It's the
But
actual statute itself.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. That's my understanding of it. Typically, they would require it when there's a change.
Right,
Mostly because there's really no way to police the change and then require it
right.
a wholesale change for everybody. So it's done incrementally.
And it is for public safety. If a police or a
absolutely.
fire,
Right, exactly.
they're looking for your house and they can't see what number you're at,
Right.
it's a pretty big problem for those folks.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Generally, what they're saying is that you've got the smaller numbers that are available at Lowe's and Home Depot, for example, and they're just not. People are missing them.
It would make sense for existing homeowners to change it on their own, but to the
Right.
point of whether we can actually police it as a town is a whole nother
Correct.
issue. Right.
That's exactly right. It establishes a new standard that, from that point forward,
Yep.
it would be updated.
Donna?
Oh, Mike, actually, clarify, so everything that's existing will be grandfathered in, but if you do like renovations to your home, they will probably require you to upgrade.
You would be required to upgrade. Right.
So that's how almost every new regulation is. You get the grandfathering in.
If there's a
And then, once
change.
you do any modifications to the building, then it has to be brought up to code on the lettering of the
Right, that's right. The new standard then
Business.
is implemented. Right.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, are there any questions for Mike? Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on this public hearing? Sir, all set, or?
Yeah, I've taken up.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion, I declare this public hearing closed. Okay. It is 7 o'clock. Public hearing for the proposed conveyance of 100 High Street. This is for public hearing ground rules. The public hearing is scheduled to allow interested citizens an opportunity to express their opinions regarding the proposed conveyance of 100 High Street. Roll call, please.
Counselor Arnone.
Here.
Counselor Bosco. Counselor Sakala.
Here.
Counselor Crissati.
Here.
Counselor Davis.
Here.
Counselor Denny.
Here.
Counselor Falk.
Here.
Mayor Ludwig.
Here.
Counselor Muller.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Suzak. Here. Counselor Ungary.
Here.
There's 10 members present, 1 is absent.
Following notice of public hearing was published in the Hartford Current Friday, April 6, 2018. Town of Enfield legal notice public hearing. The Enfield Town Council will hold a public hearing in the Enfield Town Hall, Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Connecticut, on Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, on Monday, April 16, 2018, at 6:50 PM, to allow interested citizens an opportunity to express their opinion regarding a proposed conveyance of 100 High Street, certified by Suzanne Olnicki, Town Clerk, on April 3, 2018. Ground rules of the public hearing. There is no time limit, but I ask that each person not take up too much time so everyone has an opportunity to speak. After each person who desires has had one chance to speak, I shall permit those individuals who desire a second chance. After those individuals who desire to speak a second time, I will permit those individuals who desire a third, fourth, etc. Please refrain from personalities. And Brian, maybe this would be a nice, or Mike, kind of update on what we're, the public hearings for.
Sure. This particular public hearing is required in accordance with statute 7163. In particular, this particular arrangement that we are working through with the Opera House Players has a net value, if you will, in exceedance of $20,000. So as a requirement, the town is required to hold this public hearing to give folks an opportunity to comment on the proposed arrangement. In this particular instance, the town is looking to convey through a rent-to-own agreement to the Opera House Players 100 High Street, and that would come for the fee of $1 a month through the duration of this fiscal year, with the final purchase price of $1 to come on January 1 of 2019. In addition, there are some other parameters with respect to the town providing ongoing support for utilities at that location in a fashion like and similar to what we have done previously. This is all predicated on the fact that the players will commit their resources to the renovation of that particular facility so that they can be up and running as quickly as possible in time for their fall series to open here at their new facility. The reason that the town, at least the reason that staff has recommended the particular arrangement that we have is one, former adaptive reuse requests for this facility did not garner positive responses previously when submitted. And then the other reason for that is statistical data indicates that a company like the Opera House Players will bring approximately $250,000 or so in previously unrealized revenue to our community for their particular activities. So while we recognize that this particular arrangement might be advantageous in its initial look to the players, overall it has a longer-term, bigger, broader impact to the to other existing businesses in and around the site with that disposable income market, again, of about $250,000. So that's the purpose of this hearing, is because the terms and conditions of this lease and the value of the property under consideration exceeds that $20,000.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone from the public like to speak on this public hearing? I don't know, Mike, if you have anything else you'd want to say? If, no? Okay. Anyone else like to speak on this public hearing? Hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And we move on to the general town council meeting. 7:05. I call this regular meeting of the Enfield Town Council, Monday, April 18th, 7 o'clock in the council chambers. Prayer, Councilor Ungaro, please.
Lord, we ask for your direction in all decision-making for our country, our state, and our town. I especially pray for our local government for unity and teamwork. Make our differences a source of strength as we all strive to act justly. As a town council, help us all to find ways to combine our efforts to sound decisions. In the Old Testament, in the book of Micah, it says, "What does the Lord require of you? But to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Lord, we ask you for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. The Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
Here.
Counselor Arnone.
Here.
Counselor Bosco. Counselor Sakala.
Here.
Counselor Crisati.
Here.
Counselor Davis.
Here.
Counselor Denny.
Here.
Counselor Fall.
Here.
Mayor Ludwig.
Here.
Counselor Muller.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Here.
There's 10 members present, 1 is absent.
Item number 4, fire evacuation. In case of a fire, please exit calmly to the left or to the right. We have the doors out in the back. Or doors to our left, to your right. Please go out, take the first door to the left, down the stairs, around the corner, and straight out the door. Item number 5, minute of the preceding meeting. Special meeting, April 2nd, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
By Counselor
Second.
Falk, seconded by Counselor Denny. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, by show of hands. Those opposed, abstentions? 2 abstentions, 8-4, 2 abstentions. Motion to approve regular meeting, April 2nd, 2018. By Counselor Muller, seconded by Counselor Crisati. Any discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor Suzak.
On page 2 of 16, there's a quote from me on, from meeting of 119. I do not believe I said that everywhere there is a mold problem, but I have not had a chance to review the tapes, so that is in dispute as to whether I was in agreement with, Counselor Crisati and Counselor Denny.
So we can make a motion to table while we research the tape? Is that fair with everyone? So I make, remove your motion? Remove your second? Removed. So motion to table regular meeting, minutes of regular meeting, April 2nd, 2018. Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Muller. By show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? So we have 8-4 and, 8-4 and 2 abstentions. I have a motion for the special meeting of April 6, 2018. By Counselor Muller, seconded by Deputy Mayor Suzak. Any discussion on the special meeting of April 5th? Hearing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Against? Abstentions? 9 in favor, 1 abstention. Do I have a motion to approve special meeting April 10, 2018?
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Ungary. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Abstentions? We have 10 in favor and no abstentions. Moving to item 6, special guests. We have ShopRite. And I think if folks can come around. Or is that for me? You guys stay here?
We'll come
If I have the good folks at ShopRite come up, please.
We're all going up.
Come on, get up, move. This thing works, right? Doesn't work? Hello?
There it is.
Hey guys, come up. How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. How you doing? Good to see you. How you doing? Okay, guys, come on up. You guys go right here to go. Yep. All right. So here we're honoring ShopRite. So before I read the proclamation, excuse me, I have this thing. Before I read the proclamation, if folks didn't realize, these ladies got their picture on a Cheerios box for helping fundraise for the food shelf, for the food shelf in Enfield and for area food shelves as well. So it's a pretty cool, award by getting your picture on a cereal box. So again, we're here to honor them and for ShopRite as well. And this is what the proclamation is going to read. This is a proclamation honoring the exceptional achievements of ShopRite of Enfield. Whereas during National Hunger Action Month in September 2017, ShopRite associates in 6 states participated in a friendly competition to support ShopRite Partners in Caring, a year-round hunger fighting initiative in the community. And whereas the contest is a collaborative effort between ShopRite store associates, generous customers, and their supportive vendor partner, General Mills. And whereas through a collection of donations at Checkpoint and creative store events, over $15,000 was raised, which contributed to $1.47 million raised by all ShopRites. And whereas this money is used to support local food banks in the communities that the ShopRite serves, including Enfield Food Shelf, Loaves and Fishes, and Food Share. And whereas 40 winning ShopRite stores selected associates to be featured on special edition boxes of General Mills' iconic cereal Cheerios to be exclusively at the ShopRite stores, and whereas our Enfield ShopRite was one of the winning stores for money raised and creativity in raising funds, and whereas, and if I ruin your name, I apologize, it's Jennifer Reset, Kristen Kelly, that was an easy one, and Kristen Lucci. All right. The Lucci are the leaders of the Enfield ShopRite's winning Hunger Fighting Heroes team, and 2 of them are featured on special edition Cheerios box at representatives in the ShopRite Partners in Caring Cheerios contest. Now, therefore, I, Michael Ludwig, Mayor of the Town of Enfield, on behalf of the Town Council and the Town Administration and the entire community, do hereby honor the exceptional achievements of ShopRite Enfield and congratulate the entire team on their generous community, on our generous community on a job well done. Sorry about that. Very good. Would you guys like to say a few words?
I guess I have to speak for the group. One of the things that makes this so important is there are about 60,000 employees of ShopRite in the 6-state area in which we operate. And of those 60,000 employees, our group managed to be one of the very tiny number that got put on a Cheerio box for the tremendous effort that they made. We hear a lot about the youth. We hear they're not committed. We hear they don't do this, they don't do that. Here's a challenge. These are our youth. They do a good job, and we should be proud of them.
Again, on behalf of the Town of Enfield, folks know ShopRite is such a great store, a great community partner. And again, what a great honor to have your picture on a Cheerios box. Nothing greater. So congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. And again, I always apologize in advance if I ruin your name, so I apologize. It's not on purpose. So item 6, again, we thank ShopRite for all they do, and we appreciate you guys being here, so thank you. Item 7, public communications petitions. This is the regular meeting, so anyone would like to speak before the council? Kelly. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Name and address, you got 5 minutes.
Kelly Hemler, 10 Hartford Ave. I came before you a couple months ago. February 28th, I had a fundraiser for Loaves and Fishes. I raised $887, so I just wanted to announce that. This Wednesday, April 18th, I am doing another fundraiser at Red Robin, and it's from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and I'm having it for the Little Sisters of the Poor. So I'm cordially inviting you all. I hope you can attend, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 5 to 8. Kelly, do you leave that? You got a copy of that? All right, great.
Just make sure you present them with the coupon.
You heard that. Coupon.
Yes.
Bring it.
Anyone else like to speak before the council? Sir.
Good evening. Richard Waska, 37 Elands Road. I'd like to respectfully provide and share a timeline of the many things that have transpired with regards to our subject at Barnard School, concern for health issues possibly driven by mold and or other yet to be determined contaminants. Picking up where I spoke previously, after 4 weeks removal from Barnard of the subject teacher in classroom 7 at the doctor's directive, and further as documented in a required FMLA submitted by the teacher with the doctor's evaluation, the doctor determined that Catherine could return to Barnard on March 5th. On March 5th, arriving feeling quite well, within 45 minutes, the following took place. She came down with headaches, dry eyes, postnasal drip, reflux, stomach aches, sore throat, and sore ears. With the children released to their PE at 9:50 in the morning, she had an opportunity to be out of the classroom for approximately 45 minutes, during which time this distress began to subside. Returning back to the classroom, shortly thereafter, it recurred and continued in intensity throughout the day. Arriving home after about 3 hours of sustained exposure, again, it began to subside. The very next day, upon getting up in the morning, her eyes had what are called concretions, subsequently verified by her doctor. These are hard, solid mass formations, both eyes formed by accumulation of materials within each of our bodies, built up layer upon layer. She consequently could not wear contacts nor put on any makeup that might cause further distress. The very next, on that same day, within 1 hour of arrival back to classroom 7, the distress returns yet again. Various activities throughout the day, moving back and forth out of the room, cycled the relief and distress throughout that day, every time in about a 45-minute interval. Toward the end of the day, Best Tech and custodial activities were observed in process, as we all know from prior information shared. The next 2 days happened to be snow days. On that second day, 3/8, the teacher was able to get to her doctor for evaluation, which was symptoms of impending conjunctivitis, continuing exposure. Classroom 7 was the doctor's concern that she would have this full-blown within about 2 weeks, which in fact occurred, because on 3/22 she was then subsequently diagnosed with allergic conjunctivitis, allergic dermatitis, not only affecting her eyes but now her face and her hands. On 3/25, the teacher sent an email to the superintendent, including all other responsible parties, requesting when Best Tech's findings would be made available from their work on 3/6 and their remediation on 3/10, and providing that to her doctor so that the doctor could further take input information and make determinations as to what should be done. I would like you to please note that this was approximately 2 weeks, 16, 17 days after Best Tech had completed their remediation on 3/10, as you folks documented in the letter from the superintendent. On the next day, the 26th, which was a Sunday, Superintendent Drezek advised Catherine by a phone call that he excuses her under the Approved Medical Leave Act, FMLA, which I know you folks are familiar with. On the 28th, the doctor advised that she has to coordinate, as he will set up for a thorough evaluation with the Yukon Occupational Safety and Environmental Medical Department that must be done before he will be able to comprehensively treat her and get her to a point where she's able to return to the school. Till then, he will not recommend under any circumstances her return. Her earliest appointment that can be had is May 9th. On 4/3, as we all know, the superintendent did release the letter to all faculty and to all parents at that time, with the emphasis upon visual findings. Now, I just want to finish up, Mayor, this kind of close it out here, if I may. Backing it up to 3/5, when the teacher did first return, items that was discussed at the 4/2 meeting, 3 to 5 children a day, essentially every day of the week, continue to be sent to the nurse. This is unchanged since the remediation. That is still the case since 3/10.
30 seconds.
I'll do the best I can. Thank you, Mayor. It turns out that the nurse that was contacted is not the proper nurse for the records that have to be maintained by law to confirm this. This needs follow-up. The children to this day are still in room 7. The moldy, mildewy smell in room 7, in fact, was significantly diminished subsequent to the 3/6 activity of Best Tech, but the intensity has since increased because the teacher was still in the classroom up till about the 28th or the 26th, upon which time her leave was approved. The teacher's return, of course, now is just a function of the evaluation at Yukon, the doctor's subsequent actions, and her recovery time. And the question to all of us, my last thought, if I may, Mayor, thank you so much. Where are we now? Catherine wants to be in school, not in May. The concretions, however, persist in both of her eyes. Notwithstanding, there's diminishing of all of these other activities because she's been out. So that's good news. And finally, she's exhausted. I'm exhausted. She's accumulated many sick days due to her faithful attendance over 23 years in the Enfield school system, but these sick days are being consumed rapidly. They're going to run out, and as you folks know, FMLA doesn't provide any compensation in the state of Connecticut. It's just an approval of time out without any impact upon the individual. I'm anxious for all of you, each one of you, to share your thoughts in light of what was done, what was remediated, and yet what seems to be ongoing. I know all of us want to have a happy ending on this,
You can
Mayor.
come back, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We all want to be convinced that this will occur. Thank you so much for the extension, Mayor.
No problem.
I appreciate it very much.
Anyone else like to speak for the council for the first time? Sir, you're welcome to come back. No one raises their hand. If you want to come right back up. Mr. Waska, if you want to come back up.
No, sir.
You sure? Okay. Yep.
That was my completion.
Okay.
That's why I extended my thanks yet again, Mayor.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else like to speak for the council? Hearing none, I declare public communications closed. Item 8, council communications. Anyone have it? Councilor Davis?
Kelly, thank you for keep doing the fundraisers for our community. It's very much noticed and very much appreciative. And I'm sure we'll see you Wednesday night, and we'll remember our coupon, but I know normally you will have extra coupons on hand in case some of us do forget it. Just stop and see Kelly, do your photo with her, and grab your coupon and buy some raffles and then go to eat. So we'll see you Wednesday there. Richard, as always, my heart, breaks for everything your family's going through. It's, we wish I could do a magic wand to fix it all. And instead, constantly be told to just retract what we say and let's hide things. But I'm not, and I don't really care what people personally think of me. I'm going to continue to be vocal on this issue until we know 100% that it's fine, because I'll be the first to know and to come forward and say, hey, I'm wrong. But I want to be proven wrong with an air quality test and every single thing, or remove that wall by the speaker and actually prove there's no mold in there. I also had pictures forwarded to me from March of 2015 of all the damage in that same exact wing from parents. So this is not a new thing with the roof of the leak, and I know we're doing everything we can. We don't have almost $2 million to drop from the sky to fix it right now, but it shows there's water damage in that hallway and through all those classrooms. And it's not this year, that's showing 3 years ago. So we know there's something there. Mold grows rapidly. My other concern is I'm still waiting for the air quality that was requested instead of a visual, which we still have not had. And on the other test that came out, it showed the humidity at 30, which it should be at 50. So a lot of the signs when it's very dry and the humidity so low is the dry throat, the eyes, the headaches, and it's a lot. And I think the children that are there or other staff members that are not allergic to mold are getting a lot of the symptoms of mold related because it's so dry in there, just like if you're home. If your home's extremely dry, you get the headache, you get the dry eyes. My bit is a few students that have been out, one particularly is highly allergic to mold, has been great this past week and has returned back to the school today. Another parent has removed the child out of room 7 to another room, so that's a whole another student. So it is that the kids are fine when they're going home, and when they're going back into this classroom or the classroom down the hall, they're having symptoms. Something's not right. I think it's our obligation, no matter what it is, to find out what it is. Maybe it's not the mold, but why are we not removing that classroom, opening walls, and honestly looking to just say, even out of just precaution, not saying, hey, there's mold and this is why we're doing it. No, we're just taking the precaution because we care about our staff, our teachers, and our kids there. I mean, we got to have the money to go in there and do this right. If it was any one of our children there in that classroom, not in another part of a building that doesn't have an issue or the child's not allergic to mold, but if it was our child or our loved ones being affected, we would want the same thing done. That's all I'm saying. Let's just do what's right. We're not saying there's mold. I'm not saying anybody up here or the town is saying there's mold. It's just my big mouth, and I'll take all the heat for it. But we can take precaution steps and do what's right for the safety of everybody in that school. And to me, that's the right thing to do, the only thing to do. And I personally want to apologize to you and your family that it's not done yet, and this amazing teacher is not back in this school. You know, I've known her for a while, and her dedication to these kids are amazing, and I'm sure it's breaking her heart more being home because it's dangerous for her to return, why her students that she'll call her kids are still in that room. So I personally want to say sorry to you and your family that it hasn't been resolved and she's not back at work. So thank you.
Counselor Falk?
Yeah, I went to a drug-related seminar last week, and one of the presentations was from DCF, and they apparently got federal funding, and they have a whole realm of services that they provide for drug-related services. I don't know that you ever cure a druggie, but you can work on making them better. And the funding, at least in our catchment area, is distributed through CHR. And I'm hoping that we can do a better job of promoting these services to the general public and the people that need them most, because in a lot of cases, services are out there, but people don't know they're there. So I'm hoping, working through youth services, that we can help promote that program. And the second one, last week, Development Services, met with Michael and some others, and we're starting to look at and work with some of the PZC customers or applicants to find out what they feel is inhibitors to going through the PZC process. And we hope to identify what issues they see as issues and perhaps come up with some suggested solutions. So that's it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Suzak?
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and move items A, 1 through 4, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, and N to miscellaneous and proceed to vote.
Motion to suspend the rules?
Second.
Second by Counselor Falk. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no by show of hands. All those in favor? Those opposed? Any abstentions? 10 in favor, 0 opposed. Anyone else? Anyone else? I just have a couple things. I want to announce, and I think it was actually announced on the radio this morning, of the Toast of the Town, which is the 20th, this Friday, and I have my notes. Where are they? Which will be held at the Alden Ave, the dinner, the country country diner on Alden Ave. It's again to benefit the ERFC. It'll be wine and spirits, buffet, carving, dancing, a lot of good stuff, raffle, $25 per person. Again, this Friday, the 4th annual Toast of the Town. You can go to www.ERFCinc.org if you have any questions. And again, this benefits scholarship funds for Enfield kids. I just want to also personally thank again, my adopted school at Enfield Street School for inviting me to hear their presentation on a splash park. I got it loud and clear that you folks would like a splash park in town. So they did a great job, and again, our kids are doing a pretty good job. And I think, the only other thing I'll say, I know on the Barnard situation, Brian, I know you're going to talk about it in your manager communications. I understand there's a lot going on, but I have to admit, I don't appreciate when folks don't say we're not doing the right thing. Maybe we are, but can we have the schools document exactly from the timeline from when this started to when it is now? So we can at least document all the things that we've tried to do. We haven't ignored the situation. We've tried to work with the town, with the schools. We've had I know we spent a number of money on this, and I know we're also doing some other things now, and as we go forward due to the OSHA situation. So I would like us to be able to document and put into public record all the things the schools have done through the town. Again, we haven't found anything, whether you agree with the test or don't agree with the test. The bottom line is we have not ignored this. And, personally, I do want to do what's right. And so I want it documented for the folks out there that, we haven't ignored this. And I want to, if we can, for next meeting in May, if we can ask the schools to put something together for us, or even with the town. Because, again, I think it's time to show the timeline, all the things that were done. Go ahead.
Just wanted to mention the art festival that they had at Enfield High, that the students did a great job, and I wanted to thank them for all their hard work and the teachers. It was a great show.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to report a couple things on the Commission on Aging. The senior minor home repair project has begun, and repair started on April 3rd. 11 homes thus far have been worked on, with 8 to be coming up. Special thanks to Department of Social Services for their administrative support in this program. I think this is an outstanding home repair project that people volunteer to help with the elders. Also, I'm very, very glad to hear that a fire drill was run at the senior center, and the staff did a great job with all of their drill procedures. And lockdown procedures are going to be developed by the police department, and they're going to be practicing that also. And also at the Enfield Adult Daycare Center, they're contemplating fire drills and lockdown procedures for that facility also. Also on June 12th, the Elder Abuse Symposium called The Hidden Epidemic is going to be held at the Holiday Inn. Originally, it was scheduled for the Central Library, and that's going to be held from 1 to 4. Members from the Connecticut State Protective Services will be there, along with Jessica Russell will be one of the moderators also. A few months ago, we've had these issues with the Friends of the Senior Center. I'm just happy to tell you that the envelope availability has been restored at the Senior Center, and contributions are coming in, and actually the contributions have returned to normal. So that's a positive thing there. On another note, the Hall of Fame Committee has elected their class of 2018, and I'm also proud to announce that former baseball standout at Fermi High School, Alex Zachary, class of 2014, is going to be honored this in 2 weeks by the Connecticut Sports Writers Alliance down in AquaTurf as the Connecticut State Male Athlete of the Year. And that's a first for Enfield.
Great.
And being his high school coach, I'm pretty proud of this young man, and maybe we can get him up here to be honored.
Cool. Just send me a note.
Yeah, I'll send
Great.
you a note on
Great.
that.
Yep.
He was a 2-time All-American at Eastern Connecticut State University, and a 3-time All-Leaguer and former All-State, and a member of the Connecticut Coaches All-Star team during his career. So it's quite an honor for him to be recognized as, our first Connecticut State Male Athlete of the Year, and very proud of him. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Counselor Scala.
Sorry, just really quickly, just want to remind anybody, if they're interested, that on this coming Friday, there is a quarter auction for JFK PTO, Knights of Columbus, starting at 6 o'clock. So grab some snacks, grab a couple of rolls of quarters, and come on out and have a good time. Thanks.
Thank you. All set. Moving on to item number 9, Town Manager Report and Communications. So you want to answer PAR first before you get into the main presentation of your night?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Just a couple of points with respect to the PAR. We've had heads down working on the budget up until 6:58, so I have your books ready for you to go. When you leave, also, the Joint Facilities Committee has been hard at work on a couple of different items, a few here on the agenda, but also was the facilities tour over the last 2 weekends, as well as the briefing of a potential consolidation and reorganization plan, which has been shared with their membership, but in consultation with the mayor. I will also forward out to all members of council, if not yet this evening, tomorrow. In addition, just one more item to call out with respect to an email that I did provide you earlier this evening, and to Councilor Davis's comments. We did receive a visit from OSHA over at Barnard School back on, let's see, what was the date? April 11th. They did do a full inspection of several rooms. including air samples, which were sent off to processing at a lab in Wisconsin. There will be several findings issued, largely with respect to housekeeping. There will be no monetary fines, at least as staff was briefed. The issues that were identified are also being shared with school leadership on Wednesday of this week, and the comprehensive notes and the complaint and several other documents are part of that email that I forwarded to you for your review earlier. So I did want to bring that to your attention. Beyond that, I am more than happy to answer any other questions that you might have with respect to the PAR before providing the preliminary proposed budget presentation.
Councilor Arnone.
First, your report. I hope it stays on, too, that we keep this running, because this has been always one of my favorite things. That, you know, it's just very informative every council meeting. So, youth services on here. You have one of your PAR reports. They were just completed a grant program with the SHAPE program. It says in here, and I know see social services here tonight. I see a lot of school departments here. This is a collaboration between the youth services and the Enfield Public School System, and it's with mental health and children's mental health. So they were achieved Gold Star status. Only one of 2 towns in Connecticut that have been able to complete the program, which is an assessment of mental health and ideas and ways to move forward to strengthen policies and programming in the schools. And SHAPE is School Health Assessment and Performance Evaluation System. So we're ahead of the curve on this. I'd like to thank everyone for all the hard work they did in both departments. This is just moving forward and how we're going to deal with our mental health issues, and it's budget time. And you know, a couple of years ago, we introduced 2 social workers to this program to work across the lines with the school programs, and it's been working out phenomenal. The partnership is great. They started the PBIS program in town. We all received a letter. I see some Board of Education people out there too. An unsigned letter the other day on this very program that is, it's not the answer, it's just the beginning of the future of what we have to deal with in the Enfield school systems and our social services systems. Now, we're talking about heroin a lot lately and opiate addiction. Well, they have children, and these children now are moving in to our school system with behavioral health problems. So we need to address this, and we all, you know, been a part of how massive this epidemic is, and it's leaving a legacy that is going for years and years beyond us. It's been already rolling for 15 years. It's been building into our public school system. So mental health is going to be the biggest issue we face in education, and a way to deal with it, to help these children out. And we're going in the right direction, and you know, we're just going to hear this budget coming up. And I just...
It's going in the wrong direction.
Right. I caution everyone to make sure these programs stay in. And again, SHAPE has been a phenomenal move in the right direction. So thanks, staff, on that.
Councilor Crissati.
Okay, through the mayor to the town manager. Brian, could you please give us an update in regards to the Habitat for Humanity update in regards to areas in Thompsonville that they're going to be targeting?
Sure. I assume that you're referring, Counselor, to the comments in the Development Services section of the PAR. Sure. So just to give a very brief history to talk to your point, when I had originally come on, staff and I had created the list of 10 troubled properties, or 10 properties that had kind of been lingering nuisances for quite some time. But conventional approaches to dealing with them were not yielding results, so we created this list. There are a couple of different properties on that list. One, Knox, is a property on that list. 46 Cottage Green is on that list, and I think there might be one more property that's on that list that we acquired through the tax sale, or are going to acquire on a lien call in an attempt to take possession of those properties, clean them up a little bit, and put them back out into productive use on the tax roll. The two properties that I specifically mentioned, 1 Knox and 46 Cottage Green, are two properties that are ones that we did acquire. 46 in the tax sale. 1 Knox will be moving to foreclose on the lien. But in both of those instances, those are properties that we may be able to return to the active tax roll through a partnership with Habitat for Humanity based on what their evaluation and review of those properties might mean with respect to their resources and their end clientele. And that was an outreach that came from Mr. Cirillo, so he deserves credit for that. So that's what we're doing on those particular items.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael. Thanks. I know that we've talked about this before, and we're talking about the council making a commitment to economic development, whether it's residential and commercial, to not only to Thompsonville area but to all of our districts, and being committed to creative ways to raise revenue for our town. So, getting the planning and zoning be on board with us in regard to all of these great ideas that you have. Keep it going, because I just want to let you know, we hear a lot of the negative about, things that are going on with Thompsonville. I just want to put that out there and just say that there's a lot of positive statements that are coming about the planned development that we have that's going to be going downtown, and the noticeable police activity and the patrol that's been going on. Great improvement. And let's keep moving forward with it. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Brian, 2 quick questions. And again, this is just my ultimate pet peeve. I'm driving in Thompsonville, brand new, gorgeous roads down there in downtown Thompsonville, and there's a cut in the middle of the road. And I'm sorry, it drives me absolutely berserk when we're struggling for cash, and you're going to present it tonight, and yet there's cuts all over these brand new roads in town, and and I know that area very well because when I was a kid, I used to hang out down there, and man, the roads came out beautiful on Northwood, for example, beautiful, and now there's a cut in the middle of the road, and today we got ice. My guess is that's when the cracks start coming. I know the budget's going to be very tough. But as a recommendation, I want a report at some point from Public Works on all the cuts that we need to make sure goes half, from side to by our policy. I can name one on Town Farm, on Weymouth Road. Again, I drive by it every day and it drives me nuts. Brand new road and it's cut in a corner, and that's what kills the roads. And I know we're going into the spring version of our roads program. I just would like a report that we're going to fix the road. I know we can't get every one, but especially on the newer ones, man, if you go down to Northwood, you see it would drive you nuts.
Right.
I'm not. I know it comes to staffing, but it's got to be hopefully a priority as we go forward with the limited staffing that we have.
Right.
It's just my opinion. It's just we just spent all that money. We're going to spend more. We don't have enough to start roads 2020. I just don't want all the money we just spent on some of these roads just go. That's the quickest thing, in my opinion, why these roads, unfortunately deteriorate after we invested the hard-earned money of the taxpayers. I'm not putting you on a spot, but if we could just, I know it's a staffing issue, but, and I'm driving around, I can't, my blood pressure went through the roof. So it's just one of those things. And, I think to Bob's point, and I know we got the budget, but at some point, maybe this is a summer initiative where we can start looking into a blight board. I know Councilor Bosco is one of his passions about setting up a blight board to help address some of these issues that we're talking about all over town, not just Thompsonville, but all over town. And I don't know if maybe before you leave, that's something we can talk about, how we get it started and who should be involved. I'd like to see that suggestion. And then my last thing would, I think Bob also brought up a good point. I had to, with some other council folks, Councilor Arnone, Deputy Mayor Suzak, and I can't remember else who was there, but we were over at Kite, and to the point of what's going on, you see our social services, Damon and their team working hand in hand with our youth services, our Kite programs. It happens every single day in this town, and people don't realize the bang for the buck. We got the bad news coming in 5 minutes, but people don't realize the bang for the buck they get with having, and you heard the word, there's 2 words you heard consistently in partnership and collaboration. two words that, again, if we're going to get through what we're going to have to get through in the next 3 months or 1 month and a half, it's going to have to be those two words. To continue to find ways where we partner and collaborate with both public, private, town, and board, and nonprofit. Because again, as unfortunately as we prepare people for what's coming, you know, the money is unfortunately is not there. So I'll leave it at that. Yes, sir.
And one more thing, just a few things reminded me, and Joe's not here. Joe's brought this up before, in a few complaints about real long lines this time of the year at the transfer station. So the issue is we weigh our grass and any lawn debris. So what happens is paying customers trying to get rid of their bulky waste end up having to stand wait in line with 4 or 5 cars that have to be weighed in with, or trucks that have to be weighed in with yard waste. The line can get all the way out to Town Farm Road. It could easily be an hour and a half wait on really heavy times. So, it occurred to me that maybe we could, as a suggestion, empower our employees when it's very busy like that, and we're not taking money on those loads. And I understand we have to weigh them because he's in the Public Works is in the back. Can they just dump them in a separate pile, load it on a truck later, and then just weigh the truck? And just to alleviate in really high impact times like this weekend, in the first few spring weeks and the fall weeks, just to move that line through. Yeah, he's coming for me. Yeah. So just a suggestion. Like I said, I know Joe had this issue a couple of years ago, and we knew we had to weigh it because it's a part of our recycling program, but maybe we can weigh it later. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Brian, you're welcome, sir. Brian, your show, bud.
Oh, the budget. All right. If you would,
And now we're going to the manager's presentation of the fiscal year 18-19 budget.
All right. So as the technology is unveiled, I just want to talk a little bit about the process that went into this particular budget, what we looked at and how we put this together. We were a little delayed getting started with this particular budget from the standpoint that we spent so much time trying to review and evaluate cost containment measures for the 17-18 budget. And that was a result of the shenanigans going on in the State House with respect to how they were putting their budget together and how that affected the locals. It is unfortunate that what has occurred in Hartford is now coming home to roost here in Enfield, as it has in several of the towns throughout the state. In our particular issue, we've been fortunate in the fact that, unlike other towns, we have not had to invoke layoffs, program reductions, or increase the millage rate at the biennial mark. If you don't mind. Sorry, I just want to note that it's not often that the town manager gets to put the town attorney to work. So I do want to cherish that moment for just a second. So when we put this budget together, we did so knowing that fiscal times are going to be tight coming out of Hartford. We just didn't know to what extent. So when we went into the budget, our benchmark was FY18 minus 1%. So those departments that were able to reduce their budgets by 1% or more than 1%, we did compel them to do so. But there were some departments who just didn't have that capability. And so there were some areas where we weren't able to see the reductions that we wanted. And there were some areas where we saw growth. But overall, we were able to reach our targeted estimate with respect to operating expenses. We did see a growth in debt obligation, and we did see growth in our assessment and capital costs as well. But overall, operationally, we were able to realize a decrease. So with that being said, hitting the highlights there, and the technology hopefully working, I will provide you now the presentation in and of itself. So, and first I want to start with the Water Pollution Control Authority. I don't want to speak long on this issue as we have a Water Pollution Control Authority meeting here in a few minutes. This is our current rate structure, and you'll note that Enfield, highlighted in red, is third from the bottom. We have a fairly low monthly rate overall. And that leads us to this particular slide here, which is a comparison of expenses, both as proposed and as were adopted in FY18. There is a small growth noted in the operating side, $223,000. That's largely related to the addition of 2 personnel. What we're running into is issues with respect to the maintenance of the plant and the lift stations. Because those facilities are so old, because they have rather antiquated operating systems, they are continuing to require more and more maintenance. And so the director has asked for additional support in that department to continue to keep those systems online and running. Everybody takes sewage for granted until it no longer flows downhill. And then it is a priority for everyone. So the other item, the largest increase is capital. And again, this goes back to the fact that our infrastructure is aging. It is aging and breaking at a rate faster than we can replace and maintain it. And so we need to continue to increase the dollars that we put forward towards those matters. This is representative as a pie chart of the budget. The one that is on your left is the one from that should say 2018 expenses. My apologies. Cutting and pasting is not my forte. On the right is the expenses that are reflected in the upcoming budget. With respect to the upcoming budget and the WPCA meeting following, this is a chart of the proposed rate structure. It is Enfield's recommended rate structure from staff to the authority, and this would be a roughly $10 increase per month towards the utility. That would move us to the middle of the pack. With respect to those rates. Keep in mind that the presentation of rates before you, everyone around us are 18 rates. Our number is the only 19 rate reflected on this chart. And our consultants from Woodard and Curran will speak to this in greater depth here following the regular meeting of council. The driving factors for the need for this rate change, with the 5-year rate freeze, there were unanticipated rate modifications. There's the increased demand for maintenance as well as accelerated equipment failure, pending plan improvements, and then the reduced state aid on the Water Pollution Control Authority side. Moving into the general fund and the general fund supported operations. I wanted to provide kind of a rerun of information that council and the community has previously seen because I think that it's important. Presently on this slide are the property tax for real property as well as for motor vehicle. Property is on the left, real and personal motor vehicle is on the right. Of the 29 communities in our comparative region, we rank 24th in property and 26th in motor vehicle. With respect to the level of services that we provide, these are the same comparisons from last year, at least the comparative tables that have been updated. We will have new comparative data for the FY19 budget. But again, you'll notice that in most of these categories, we continue to be at the top of the list. So for this particular budget, we did continue to fund adequate operations to maintain the delivery of those services at the capacity that you just saw in those charts. And as a result, these are the revenue tables that are required to continue that are required to continue to provide those services. You'll note the property tax overall is going up approximately 12%, and we did see a moderate increase in the collective all other revenues, but I would point out that the intergovernmental revenue, that's a 22% decrease. That's the money we get from the state. It is down about $8.8 million. Overall from what we have seen in previous years. And so to my comment about the shenanigans in Hartford, that is its direct impact on our community. As a pie chart, this time correctly copied and pasted, This is the same information graphically represented. Some of the more notable activities that I want you to be aware of as we move into the expense side of the book are the continuation of the capital asset financing. Remember, last year we went from a cash-based model to acquiring a lot of our capital assets to a finance model. We did that for the purposes of money management. In this particular budget, we're also creating sinking funds for the Town of Enfield facilities, the Board of Education facilities, and our public infrastructure. The way that the town currently budgets for these items is we list a specific topic. So for instance, we would write into our 3-year plan school building roofs, and we would put $50,000 in that. And maybe we spent that, maybe we didn't. If maybe it was doors that were broken and not roofs, we'd move that money from roofs down to window or to doors. And then 5 months later, when suddenly all the doors were fixed but the roof started leaking, there was no money in the roof line item. So there was a lot of movement back and forth from an accounting perspective. The capital non-reoccurring plan is also a 3-year plan. So after the term of 3 years, any money that is not spent is then reassigned back to the general fund for allocation in the next budget. In a sinking fund, the way that these work is they are more general in description. So in this instance, we have programmed $250,000 to BOE facilities. And based on the legislation that's under review by the town attorney's office, this would be $250,000 for anything on the building, if you will. So if windows break, we spend a little bit of money on windows. If doors break, we spend a little bit of money on doors. And any of the money left over stays in that fund and continues to accumulate well beyond any 3-year period. And it continues to grow a balance as long as the council allows it to grow a balance. Unlike our ability to move money within the capital non-reoccurring fund with relatively simple legislation at the council level. Once the money goes into the sinking fund, it stays in the sinking fund until such time as the sinking fund is otherwise dissolved. And because that is created by ordinance, it's dissolved by ordinance, so there's much more public notice and awareness when those kinds of actions happen. So there's a little bit of freedom that comes with the money, and the fact that it's not as clearly delineated for things like doors and windows, it's just for the buildings themselves. But then there's also more accountability from the same standpoint, in the fact that how those funds are created, it requires more public input and more public notice to effectively dissolve those funds. And then last but not least, there's some operational consolidation within this budget. We had originally looked to stand up a Department of Library and Leisure Services, but we ran into some technical issues with respect to the charter language. And so what we have done is we have now created a Department of Library Services, which includes divisions of both recreation and senior center services. And we thought that this was a good mix of these particular operations, because there's a lot of cross-programming, and if there's not, there is a great opportunity for cross-programming. A good example that I can use was the pickleball. Recreation stood up pickleball, but they stood up pickleball for the senior center and as a senior recreation activity. So it seemed like a good opportunity for us to be able to put together these 3 things under one umbrella so that we could garner more effective and efficient operations. So these are items that are reflected in the upcoming budget and the FY19 budget. Within the capital expenditures, these are some of the more notable expenses. There's $690,000 for equipment and vehicles. To the sinking funds, there's $250,000 set aside for the Town of Enfield facilities, another $250,000 set aside for BOE facilities. There's also money for PCB abatement at JFK in the inner ring this summer. And then there's another $625,000 in monies for public infrastructure. There's a good portion of that that's dedicated to roads, but the other $250,000 is part of one of those sinking funds. So it covers everything from storm sewers to sidewalks to crack sealing. And then to my comments earlier during the manager's report, there is $125,000 in there with respect to a facilities master plan. For most people who might not otherwise be aware, the town owns 1.4 million square feet of space, 35 buildings and 500 and some acres, and those are just related to our standing facilities. That does not include our recreation. That does not include our recreation components or our open space. So we're a fairly large landowner. We're a fairly large building owner. With respect to square footage of buildings, we are the third largest owner of square footage in the town. We are third on the list behind the Department of Corrections and Win Stanley Enterprises in their conglomerate of facilities. Moving on now to the actual dollars and cents. This is, again, the table comparison of some of the more notable expenses. In this particular instance, education is zero growth, funded across the board this year as it was last year. Salaries, we did see a slight increase. That was the settlement of several outstanding collective bargaining agreements. In almost all other expense categories in which we had discretion, we did see reductions as well as benefits. And that is a credit to Steve Belinda, his team, and all of the employees and supervisors here who have taken healthcare seriously. It's because of their efforts towards wellness and wellness education that we've seen that decrease in premiums. Debt and capital. This is another large growth area where we are just unable to control the growth of expense. The largest portion of this growth is related to permanent debt coming on the books from a temporary finance condition related to the 2015 roads project as well as Enfield High. And then, as I showed on the previous slide, there is about $690,000 for police cars, snow plows, new medics, all of the equipment we cannot be without. Again, demonstrated via pie chart, that same information. This is the information to which Mike was referring. Please note the column at the end. We are recommending a mill rate of 97 mils, and that is both on the property and on the motor vehicle side of the house. This rate increase is necessary, as well as several other fee and rate increases internally, as well as certain moderated reductions of services to bring our financial house into balance. And again, almost all of this is a direct result of the state and its terminating $8-some million worth of pass-through revenues that came to us. I would like to note that when you look at this information, historically speaking, the millage rate for 2019 is still less than the millage rate from 2006. So we're talking almost a 12-year span, and we're continuing to function at about the same tax rate overall. That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good run. I know there's some big ups and downs in there. And that does include that housing market spike and bubble burst in there. But that's a good run to do 12 some years at about the same rate. The general fund, again, and I did touch on this, the reason that this is happening is by and large because of the decrease in the intergovernmental revenues from the state. We also have that debt coming on from Roads 2015 and Enfield High School. And then, the issue of deferred assets is also playing a key factor in that. We can't continue to put off the purchase of police cruisers and snow plows and medics. If we wait too much longer, those items aren't going to work, and when it comes time to provide those needed services, we just won't be in a position to do so. To that graphic with respect to the millage rate, I just showed you that 34.97. Again, this is that similar chart which you have seen, again, adjusted to reflect our millage rate, 34.97, at least the rate that's recommended. You'll note that on the property side, that moves us to the middle of the pack. You will also note that on the right-hand side, that moves us up to the top third on motor vehicle. I would like to point out, again, we are the only FY19 rate reflected on these charts. They have not been updated to reflect mid-year rate increases that several communities have put on, and they are not reflective of pending millage increases from other communities. So keep in mind that we're a little out of whack on these charts, but it is demonstrative of the fact that if you look now where these green bars are, it's more in line with where these yellow bars are and continue to remain with respect to the amount of services that we provide our citizens. So while I recognize the fact that this is a rather large mill increase within the history, at least in the recent history of our community, it is reflective of the services that we provide. And I think that that's important to note, that this is not excessive or exorbitant from the standpoint that we're being frivolous with the dollars that we have. This is the fact that we have been so frugal and responsible with the dollars we have had that we've been able to delay this type of mill increase for so long. And so that's why it's manifesting itself as it is today. And while I wish that there was another way for us to be able to accommodate and account for this particular measure, unfortunately there is not. And I should point out that there is a scheduled draw of $2.1 million from the fund balance as a means to continue to try and keep that millage rate down as low as we could keep it. And that is that withdrawal from the fund balance is part of that projected 5-year, 6-year draw that we had previously shown council when we were going through our 2018 cost containment exercises. So again, the last bit of slide here. Upcoming dates for folks to note. We'll begin briefing council directly with respect to the departmental and division budgets later this week on Thursday downstairs. The community conversation is about a week out over at Barnard. Then we will hold our public hearing on May 2nd, followed by the BOE TC workshop on May 3rd, and that will be in the high school auditorium. And then Thursday the 8th is council's deliberation on the budgets, followed lastly by the mandatory adoption date of May 21, which is the last council meeting in May. So with that, that does conclude my budget presentation. More than happy to answer any questions or concerns I have at this time.
So between the supposed bipartisan state budget and the governor's cuts, that's basically the reason why we're seeing this, we need this increase.
That is correct. That
So
is correct.
what happened to our state legislators? We're supposed to have them in on April 5th?
So my understanding was that we did reach out to them. I did ask Ms. McCarthy in my office to reach out to them. I believe it was Senator Kissel was unable to make the one date that was not on his calendar. Then we tried to reschedule to get everyone together in advance of this presentation, but there was not a day that was amiable to all three of them. So there was a meeting that both Representatives Hall and Representative Stokes had on their calendar, but it was the one that Senator Kissel did not have on his. So as the request was to have the group together, we tried to accommodate the three of them, but unfortunately we were not able to do so.
I was hoping they could do that before we get into deliberations and explain why we're, being treated when we're a blue-collar town, being treated like we are on the Fairfield County. Thank you.
Sure.
Just as a point, I followed along on what you emailed us, and just so you know, the pie charts are all blank.
Oh, did they come out? Okay.
So, which, if you could just either print it out or, I don't know, make the pie charts not blank. I don't.
Sure.
They didn't come out. But that's it. I appreciated being able to follow along.
Sure.
I guess for me, it's a little takeoff on what Tom just said. I mean, we can bring our representatives here and we can grill them, but wouldn't we also love to grill the governor? Maybe we could extend an invite. He could come for sandwiches.
So on Tom and Donna's question, can we invite the state legislators to the May meeting, council meeting?
I know that Ms. McCarthy was working to get a
Okay.
date on the calendar, so I'm not sure whether or not that's going to happen in May, but I know that she's working to get them here.
I have a couple things, Brian.
Sure.
Can we get a press release with the dates, or so folks know? I mean, you're right, it is a little later than normal.
Sure.
So I think it's just so folks know, and they know, again, so they make sure they're aware and they can come. Again, our budget deliberations generally are open to the public, even though the public can't speak. But we will deliberate, so folks are welcome if they can make them. So if we can put that out there. And I know I don't want to get too detailed here because you just released it, but I had two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
So the sinking fund, can we invest out of that? So we can't invest that money?
No, there's specific state regulations on how the town can invest its money and what money it can invest.
Just curious.
Now, beyond that answer, we have Mr. Wilcox, who can provide you, I'm sure, in great chapter and verse, the detail on that. But
Yeah, you don't have to do it now, no problem, I know. I was just curious. And then, that's one way of addressing the roofs issue, where we, right, if we, I don't mean to maybe put you on the spot, if we address where we can actually start roofs, without having to finish them in 1 year.
yeah, so this is one of the areas where the utilization of the sinking fund, as that balance continues to grow, that is an area where the town can use resources to address those roofs. Located within the CIP towards the back, it's not accounted for in this year, but it shows up next year, begins a staggered roof replacement financing system within the CIP to begin addressing those roofs, because to simply, save money,
Now, we have to release that detailed so folks understand that we are trying to address it, and other than just coming to them for a referendum and asking for the money.
Right, correct. So so when the legislation comes forward with respect to the sinking funds, you will see the more defined language with respect to where this money goes and how it can be spent. Additionally, right now, the proposed budget book has the 5-year CIP located in the back, but there is a 10 and 15-year component of that same plan, which will come out as part of the final budget
And you'll
book.
have your debt analysis too, which I think is very important for the public to understand what they have to purchase over the next X amount of years.
Correct. So we'll have, to the request that was previously made, we will have a targeted chart of the debt that is currently on the
all right.
books and when
That's
that
very
starts
important.
rolling off.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
appreciate it, yeah.
Sure.
And I just want to, before I'm done, I want to thank the staff, because again, I want to reiterate what we've been working on a current fiscal year budget since December of last year. And to their credit, they all came to the table. I mean, I understand this isn't the best of news when we're sitting here talking about a $3 million increase here. But we were able to balance our current fiscal year budget without reducing, without laying it off, without using the debt, our fund balance, and without actually, again, having to go to the schools. And most importantly, we didn't send out a supplemental tax bill, which a lot of towns around us had to do. Which again, I think everyone here is dead set against sending out a supplemental tax bill. However, here we are now with the reality of the situation. But so I just want to thank everyone for being in the audience, for coming, first of all. I know this is on your personal time, but also the work that we didn't get a chance publicly to thank you that you had to go through, which again, I know this is late in next year's fiscal budget, but we've been working on the budget since December. And I know all you folks have, and again, I know this isn't easy, and there's going to be some tough decisions that have to be made. And again, I hope folks realize it's not personal, it's about what we can afford. And that's simply what the decision's going to be. So again, I thank you for the presentation, and I also want to thank our staff for showing up tonight. Any other questions on the budget? Gina?
Just one more point. Before you do the press release, just make sure you change Thursday, April 18th to Wednesday.
A good catch. 2 in a row. 2 in a row.
Well, this one was Bob's, so his credit on that one.
Thank you, Bob.
All set?
You're welcome.
Gina, all set? Counselor Muller?
Real quick, what's the maximum amount that you can put into a sinking fund per year?
So the maximum amount that the town can appropriate is a formula contained within the charter, but in round numbers, it's roughly $480,000. Sure.
Moving on, I think town attorney report at item 10, please. Any questions for the town attorney?
Wake up.
Sorry, Chris, one last thing. I'm going to keep on the, again, standing with the tolls. I know, just want to make sure we're ahead of it. Again, because if they actually do put tolls on anyone, Route 5 becomes an issue, and that's why I want us to be able to negotiate from strength if we have to.
Understood.
All right, thank you. Item number 11, report of special committees. Counselor Muller.
On Thursday, March 29th, the Joint Facilities Committee met, and we interviewed 3 firms. The team met on Saturday to grade the firms using the state QBS system. This involved grading the firms based on qualification versus lowest bidder. Based on the scores, JCJ was the best qualified to do the job.
Thank you.
That's in our packet tonight.
Any questions for Counselor Muller? Or anyone from the town, Facilities Committee? Any other reports of the special committees? Counselor Ungary.
I did want to mention that I did meet with the Cultural and Arts Commission and that things are progressing nicely on 100 High Street. The Opera House players are looking forward to making improvements and settling into their new home. I also met with Youth Services and some other team leaders, and piggybacking on what Councilor Arnone had said, we were actually discussing drug prevention through a faith-based lens, and we were thinking that's really an untapped resource. There were over 20 churches in through youth groups and through prevention that's possibly an avenue. We want to have focus groups and leading with logic models and being data-driven. Also, we had a subcommittee of public safety. We met with the new police chief. We discussed security, school reviews, expenses, training, opioid updates, and the chief gave us some quick takes on the Enfield Police Department. And also, I attended the facilities tour on Saturday, and that was very enlightening. Thank you, Brian, for that.
Anyone else? Moving on to old business, item 12. On page 1, I don't believe we have an appointment. On page 2, old business, 2 through 15, I don't believe there's an appointment. On page 3, on item 16, do we have a motion for item 16? It's on the Ethics Commission for the permanent replacement.
Motion to remove.
Second, motion by Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Arnone. Do we have a nomination? Oh, we have to move it.
Motion was to remove.
Oh, sorry, we have a vote. All those by favor of removing them, all those opposed? We have 10 in favor, 0 against. Sorry. Do we have a nomination for the Ethics Commission? Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Carl E. Swanson, Jr.
There's been motion, seconded by Councilor Muller. Any discussion? Do we have a motion to?
Motion to close.
Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Falk. All those in favor by closing nomination by show of hands. We have 10 in favor, 0 against. Any other further discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
Yes.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Fall.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Carl E. Swenson, Jr.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Items 17 through 21 remain on the table. Do we have a motion for the Patriot Award Committee Veteran Council? Do we have a nominee? Do we have a motion to remove from the table?
So moved.
By Councilor Falk.
Second.
By Councilor Denny. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none by a show of hands. We have 10 in favor, 0 against to remove from the table. Do we have a nomination? Councilor Denny.
I have a nomination for Frank Pizzini Jr.
Motion by Councilor Denny, seconded by Deputy Mayor Suzak. Any discussion on the motion? Do we have a motion to close nominations?
Motion to close.
Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Councilor Falk. All those by show of hands are closing nomination. We have 10 in favor, 0 against. Any discussion on the main motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
Frank Pizzini Jr.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
Frank Pizzini Jr.
Counselor Fall.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Frank Pizzini, Jr.
10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item 23 and 24, no nominations there. We move to old business B, appointments by the town manager.
No appointments at
No
this time,
appointments
sir.
for 1 through 5 on page 3 or 4 through 12 on page 4?
No, sir.
Okay. Item C under old business, discussion resolution, oh, that one stays on the table. Macy stays on the table. Item D? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, item E, do we have a motion to remove from the table and get it off the agenda? By Counselor Muller? Seconded by Counselor Denny. Any discussion on the motion? To remove from the table, by a show of hands, all those in favor of removing from the table? Those opposed, 10-0. Now the motion, right then we have the motion to remove from the agenda, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a motion to remove from the agenda?
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Crisati. Any discussion on the motion? Sorry, go ahead.
You might want to just tell the public what we're removing.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, I'll do that right after. So
Okay.
by show of hands before we, okay, right. So basically, we're removing the collective bargaining agreement from the Teamsters 671 off the table because it's been resolved. So we're getting it off the agenda.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Counselor Denny. So sorry. Suzanne, I need a motion to, right, any discussion, then we have a roll call.
You can do this with a hand vote.
Okay, so any other further discussion? All those in favor of removing off the agenda by a show of hands? Those opposed, any abstentions? 10 in favor, 0 against. So thank you, Counselor Denny, apologize for that. Item 13, new business, A through D. Do we have no consent? Any council appointments? I see none. Counselor C, town manager appointments.
None at this time, sir.
And P and Z appointment on letter D, I don't think we have any either. Item 14, items for discussion. Remove the consent A, 1, 2, 3, and 4 to miscellaneous. Item B, any other appointments? I don't think we have any. Item C, any appointments by the town manager? Any P and Z commission appointments? I don't think we have any. So E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, and N also been moving to miscellaneous. So under item 15, we are into miscellaneous. And first is the consent agenda for items A, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Motion to approve the consent agenda by Deputy Mayor Suzak, seconded by Counselor Sakala. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, by show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? We have 10 in favor, 0 against. Now, item E under miscellaneous. And 1 second, I will get there. I like having my paper, sorry.
I know. I can just press this button and I get right there.
All right.
You're so much younger than me.
Item E, discussion resolution to transfer of funds for the police department of $11,500. Be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8, F of the Town Charter, the following transfer hereby made. To Police Services, Health Services 102-00500-53330 of $11,500 from Police Services Other Equipment 1-200500-573-900 of $11,500. Certified that the above stated funds are available as of April 9, 2018 by John Wilcox, our Director of Finance, approved by the Town Manager on 4/13/2018.
So, second.
Motion by Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Arnone. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Brian, do you want to give a quick little background on this one?
Sure. This particular item is to transfer funds with respect to health and wellness program that is currently in the collective bargaining agreement between the town and the police officers.
So we're honoring the agreement.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. Any other further questions or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item F, discussion resolution, request for transfer of funds from CIP of $40,000. Resolution, be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8, F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made. From account 108-00092-584000, unallocated contingency of $40,000 to Fund 108-00092-593010 of $40,000, unallocated transfer to capital. From 3-10-4218-480001 of $40,000, CIP revenue 2018, TRF from general fund. What's that? What's TRF? Transfer from general fund to 31008-153-533900 of $40,000. Architectural and engineering - other professional fees, certified that the above stated funds were available on April 9, 2018 by our Director of Finance, John Wilcox, approved by the Town Manager on April 13, 2018.
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Crissati. Any discussion on the motion?
Could we get clarification
Yep.
as to what this
Counselor
is?
Falk? Brian?
Yes, this is a transfer with respect to the upcoming item, which is to hire JCJ Architecture for their support of the Joint Facilities Committee, functioning as the JFK pre-referendum committee.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
And I guess, there's a lot of, when you have a referendum and it does fail, you must go back out for professional services. It must be redesigned and looked at again professionally. And we're following the guidelines so that we can get reimbursed when the referendum passes.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item G under miscellaneous, discussion resolution requesting JCJ Architecture for JFK Middle School architectural and design team services. Wow, this is a long one. All right. Resolution to enter into contract with JCJ Architectural PC for JFK Middle School architectural and consultant design team services. Whereas a referendum for additions and renovations to JFK Middle School is under consideration for November 2018. Whereas town staff is in the process of preparing an application for the state grant for the desired additions and renovations to the JFK Middle School middle school. Whereas a feasibility study and a preliminary design are required components of the grant application. Whereas the town issued a request for qualifications, RFQ, for architectural and consultant design team services for additions and renovations at JFK Middle School on February 27, 2018. Whereas the town issued a request for fee proposal for the above services as an addendum 1 to the above referenced RFQ on March 9, 2018. Whereas the Joint Facilities Committee used the quality-based selection, QBS, process for evaluating the 7 qualification packages, received and completed interviews of the 3 finalist firms on March 29, 2018. Whereas the fees proposed submitted by the 3 finalist firms were reviewed on April 2, 2018. Whereas the Joint Facility Committee has recommended retaining JCJ Architectural PC for JFK Middle School architectural and consultant design team services, be it resolved that the town manager, on behalf of the town of Enfield, is authorized to enter into contract with JCJ Architectural PC for the JFK Middle School architectural and consultant design team additions and renovations, and be it further resolved that the town clerk is authorized to impress the seal of the town of Enfield on such a document, amendment, rescission, or revision.
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Muller. Any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item H, discussion resolution adopting amendments to the Enfield Town Code, Section 14-212, display of street numbers. Resolution adopting amendments to Enfield Town Code, Chapter 14, Article 2, Section 14-212, display of street numbers. Whereas proposed amendments to the Enfield Town Code, Chapter 14, Article 2, Section 14-212, display of street numbers must comply with the state building code, and whereas the Enfield Town Council held a public hearing in the Enfield Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, on Monday, April 16th, 2018, and now therefore be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council adopts the amendments to the Enfield Town Code, Chapter 14, Article 2, Section 14-212, display of street numbers as shown in Attachment A, presented on March 26, 2018, prepared by the Town Manager's Office.
So moved.
By Counselor Arnone.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Denny. Any discussion on the resolution?
Just
Counselor
something.
Falk?
The attachment details all the things I was asking about earlier. Somehow, we need to get this information out to the public so that they know what it is.
Okay.
It is. It's on page 72 as well.
You think somebody's going to go in there and look at that? No. We need to give some PR or press.
Isn't that,
Make people aware of it.
why we have a website? That should be on the website.
Not everybody has a computer either.
They all have smartphones.
That's true.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary. 4. Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sikala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Fall.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item I, discussion resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into a lease agreement with the Opera House Players, Inc. Resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into a lease with option to purchase agreement with the Opera House Players, Inc. Whereas the town of Enfield owns the property located at 96 High Street, also known as 100 High Street, Lot 131, on Assessor's Map 25. And whereas pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 7-163E, the town council held a public hearing on April 16, 2018. And whereas pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 8-24, at its April 5, 2018 meeting, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission made a positive recommendation to the council regarding the proposed lease with option to purchase the property. And now therefore be it resolved that the town manager, Brian R.H. Chedkowski, or his successor, is authorized to enter into is that unintended comedy? I'm sorry, I gotta stop. And then contractual instruments, subject to review and approval of the town attorney in the name and on behalf of the town of Enfield with the Opera House Players, Inc., and to affix the corporate seal prepared on April 6, 2018 by the Department of Development Services.
So moved.
By Counselor Arnone, seconded by Counselor Denny. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please. I thought I heard someone, yeah?
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sikala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Fogg.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Very good. Welcome to Enfield.
Welcome home.
Welcome to Enfield. All right. Sorry, I am getting there. All right. So we are item J, discussion resolution amending the children's librarian job description. Resolved that in accordance with Chapter 7, Section 2 of the Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby amend the classification plan to amend the job description of the following position. Amend, 1, children's librarian, submitted for April 3rd, 2018, submitted by Steve Belinda, our Director of Human Resources. By Counselor Crissati.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Arnone. Do we need a brief discussion from Steve on this, or is? Ooh. Steve, 2 seconds just to give us a brief update on this, if you don't mind? Sure. Please. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. So I talked to the library director this morning, and basically what this change does is it allows the children's librarian to be more of a public outreach to the preschools, the daycares, get this person out and into the community more. And get rid of some of the antiquated language that was there. So anytime a position becomes vacant, that's the best time to change the job description.
Right. Any questions for Steve?
And it's cost neutral to the town.
Appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Okay.
Hearing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sikala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Fogg.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item K, discussion resolution authorizing the waiving of property maintenance fines and liens at 104 South Road. Resolution authorizing the waiving of property maintenance fees, fines and liens for 104 South Road. Whereas on June 7th, 2016, David A. Mara, the owner of 104 South Road, property owner, was cited for violations of the property maintenance ordinance and was fined accordingly. And whereas the property owner did not contest the citation and was deemed to have admitted liability. Whereas the hearing officer notified the property owner in writing of such decision. Whereas pursuant to Section 14-183 of the Enfield Town Code, property maintenance liens securing the fines were recorded in the town's land records on July 27, 2016. And whereas as a result of the mortgage foreclosure, action on the property was required by Wells Fargo Bank, current owner, on November 2nd, 2017. And whereas the current owner has brought and kept the property in compliance. And whereas the current owner has requested the town waive a portion of the unpaid property maintenance liens in order to allow for the property to be placed in the market. And whereas the above noted request pertains only to the property maintenance liens filed per Town Code Section 14-1-183. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does authorize a waiver of the portion of the property maintenance liens on 104 South Road and authorizes the amounts set forth in Amendment A to be accepted in lieu of full payment for those liens prepared April 6, 2018 by the Town Manager's Office.
So moved.
Counselor Arnone, seconded by Counselor Crissati. Any discussion on the motion? Counselor Falk.
I think the thought of getting a property back on the tax records is a plus for the town, and I would fully support this.
Counselor Denny.
Yeah, this was a pretty blighted situation, especially on the road area, and if you pulled out of Mark Twain and that by the park there, you could barely see left at all with any of the vehicles coming. So the town took it upon themselves to clear all that brush and that fence down, and hopefully it'll be back on the tax. Thank you.
Again, this is the purpose of the property liens, to have some negotiation ability when a bank or someone forecloses. Gives the town a little leverage to get this property back on the market, and it doesn't blight the neighborhood. And again, I think, not to relate, Council Bosco would say we need a blight authority, so that's something that hopefully we can look to get going in the summer. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item L, discussion resolution to abate taxes due on 37 Virginia Ave. Resolved that the Enfield Town Council pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 12-124 hereby abates the delinquent municipal real estate taxes and interest and lien fees thereon for the grand list of October 1, 2014, October 1, 2015, and October 1, 2016 for the property at 35 Virginia Ave owned by Olga Ann Norris, dated April 9, 2018, by the Finance Director.
So moved.
By Counselor Arnone. Seconded by Counselor Crissati. Discussion on the motion. Is Della here?
No, the finance director is
Yeah.
here to answer any questions.
John,
or
would you mind
concerns
coming up?
that
'Cause I'm sure we
council
have some questions on
Sure.
this one. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Looks like
Any
my red
chance you
button's
can-
still on.
Any chance before we ask, you can talk a little bit to the state statute that's, or is that, John? The Connecticut General Statute, Section 12-1, that gives, that's authorizing this, I guess, or, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the statute allows the governing body to forgive the taxes to people who are poor and cannot pay. However, they need to go to a committee. The town has to have an abatement committee, which we designated to be the General Finance Committee. General Government and Finance, I should say. We proposed it to them a couple of weeks ago, something like that, and I believe they've approved it. So both of these two.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I guess we need to explain that at this home, the reason they got into this tax difficulty is due to the passing of one spouse. And I guess they now have applied for the tax reduction. And I can't remember the proper name for that program for seniors.
The homeowner circuit breaker program is
Right.
another program that's offered by the state that allows, if you meet certain income limits and you must live in the property, it will grant you a credit up to a certain amount on, they're specified in the statute as far as how much they can get on each one.
Right, and this is an income and asset verification.
Definitely income. I believe it's assets as well.
Asset beyond on the house. The only asset that occurs is the house.
I believe so, yes.
And I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I think I have a problem because these taxes are being abated, and also we're going to be in a tax situation where they're going to be paying taxes at 25% of what would be the expected tax on this home. Eventually, this home becomes an inheritance, and there's no way for the town to recoup any of its, I guess, forgiveness or support to this family and the people that need this. And I really was hoping that there would be more of a balanced relationship between what the town is willing to do for people and what people can do back and reciprocate for the town.
Any other questions, discussion? Yeah, I wasn't at the meeting when I should have been there, but this one's a tough one for me. I mean, and I know Donna sat in for me, but so the question becomes: we abate the taxes. Is there a limit so if someone, say in the house, could someone put the house up to market tomorrow if we abated it tonight?
Yes.
All right.
And I don't believe there's no
I mean, that's
recoupment or anything. It's a
fair question. I
credit,
appreciate
so.
your answer. Yep. Councilor Denny.
So in reality, we're voting on this, and then a year down the road, they're not paying their taxes again, and so it could be a recurring situation with this property, yes?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And the reason why I'm saying something is because Mr. Bosco's not here tonight, but he called me this morning at 8 o'clock, because he has a lot of heartburn on it. This is a tough one for me, because we have another one that's really in dire straits that's coming after this. I'll support this, but I'm on the verge. Thank you.
Excuse me, if it pleases the council, just be advised that Ms. Norris is current on her current taxes, so she is able to maintain the existing tax burden at that property based on the application of the other state programs. So this, in Ms. Norris's case, is not an issue of ongoing concern from the standpoint that it is this specific period where she fell behind as a result of her spouse was the one who took care of these issues, and so she was unaware to file for the particular credits that applied, and that's why she fell behind. So she is current and has continued to make payments on her existing tax rate. So just be aware of that when you consider this item.
Councilor Falk and Councilor No.
If somebody buys this house, does all this just go away and then the next person has to pay full taxes on the assessed value of the property?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is just for her? It's
That's
not
correct,
the house?
yes. Right. You forgive the taxes to the owner of the property. So this would be Ms. Norris, and, the full assessment. Whoever purchased the property, if they met the requirements of the homeowner program at the state, it is possible that, they might get a reduced tax rate as well, but that would be solely subject to whoever took over the property.
Or it might be somebody that can afford it and pay the full tax.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor No.
So was there more circumstances also to this? Am I right in remembering too, he was a veteran and he was paying a lot of these with veterans benefits at one point? Is that the correct one, or am I confusing?
Yes, sir. That's my recollection from my conversation with the son, who was our point of contact on this issue.
Right, so every individual circumstance has to be treated individually also, and that's, we have the burden of knowing things, that make things, make a case for these things. So I just, since there was some debate, I hate to wash their life out in public, but it is public money, and I think everybody should know that there was circumstances that made this even more, heartbreaking, if that's the case, the word to use. Thank you.
Yep, very good. Councilor Ungary.
Did you say that she's up to date now? Said yes.
She can meet her current requirements, and she would be applying for the homeowner credit from the state as well.
Yes. So she's making payments, so technically she remains past due until such time as the full payments meet the total of what, what the total tax due is. So as she continues to make payments, once she reaches the full amount due, then she'll be showed as paid, but she's meeting her agreed upon payments, so.
Deputy Mayor Suzak?
Now, you said this is the state homeowners program that the state used to send us money, funding for, like a joint effort, and it's no longer a joint effort, is that what's going?
The state homeowner program, I don't want to say it, it's a program that elderly homeowners can apply for. Like I said, they meet certain income limitations. They would set aside amounts every year to meet those requirements. And then however much, if the total of all the towns that had submitted applications exceeded that amount, you would get a pro rata share of whatever you applied for. Up to whatever. In the 2018 budget, they did not fund that program.
What about the 17 budget?
17 budget,
I know, but just curious if this was one of the.
They
when
did, and
talk about
we
state
got-
cuts. These one of the things people don't realize it's been cut.
That's correct, yes.
All right.
In addition to the state one, the town has an ordinance that matches what the state authorizes.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
Against.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
We have 9 in favor, 1 against, and no abstentions.
Discuss a resolution to abate taxes due at 6 Gandy Terrace. Resolved that the Enfield Town Council pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 12-124 hereby abates the delinquent municipal real estate taxes and interest and liens, fees thereon for for the grand list of October 1, 2016 for the property at 6 Gandy Terrace, owned by Sharon J. Zablowski. I apologize if I ruined her name. April 9, 2018, certified by the Finance Director. By Counselor Sakala, seconded by Counselor Denny. Any questions?
Is this a similar situation?
Similar situation, I think, right? Jonathan?
She's a little bit different. She inherited this property from her mother, and she is disabled according to Social Security definition. So she's on a limited income as
So
far
do we
as
get
that
any
goes.
guidance from the state? If this is an important program, why are they not funding this program? I mean, do we get any guidance when they? I mean,
Well, I'm
again,
not
generally
sure
they give
that
you
she qualifies for the elderly program.
Okay.
Her mother was on the program, but I'm not sure that she does.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
Against.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 9 in favor, 1 against, and no abstentions.
Discuss a resolution authorizing the town council to appoint personnel search committee for the position of the town manager. Resolution authorizing the town council to appoint a personnel search committee for the position of the town manager, whereas council wishes to appoint all 11 members of the council to the personnel search committee for the position of the town manager. Now therefore be it resolved that the council authorize the search committee to work with the town manager, acting town manager, town attorney, and a director of human resources to recruit for the position of town manager, and to expend such sums that are necessary, that are reasonably necessary to conduct the recruitment and selection process created by the town's manager's office on April 11, 2018.
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Muller. Any discussion? This simply is allow the town council to be able to conduct our search, which went out today. what do you call it? Marketing material for the next, I don't know if you want to give real quick, Steve? Sorry, I'm not doing it justice.
I have been in contact with the recruiter. The ad was sent last Friday, and she did send it out. She sent me a tentative schedule, which I'm going to be sending to you tomorrow. I just need to highlight some details further for you guys, but we have a schedule going forward. So if all goes as planned, we can have a new candidate, a new town manager starting in August.
Right? Any questions for Steve? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Angaya.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
So we just, item 16, public communications, happens before 11, we're at 9, so you guys are in luck. Anyone like to speak for the council? Sir?
Richard Waska, 37 Elands Road. Mr. Mayor, I want to tell you how pleased I am with the follow-up you're asking of the town manager.
Mike, sorry. Yeah. Go
Are
ahead.
we okay now?
Yeah, you're great.
Yeah, I wanted to let you know how pleased I am with your follow-up to the town manager, looking back to the responsiveness of the town. Throughout, I have felt that the town is incredibly responsive. So has the teacher. I've said this before. I think what we're going to find, and this will be a good thing for all of us, because we've expended money along the way, trying to understand what's going on and replacing things over and over again. I'm inclined to believe, in light of the fact that I just heard from our town manager that OSHA was in, and they did do air quality sampling, it will answer the question of responsiveness balanced against thoroughness, which is where Councilor Davis has been all the way along, as I perceived it. I think that's highly significant for all of us. You know, we can pour the energy in, but are we going in the right direction? That's always a question. We always go forward with the best of intentions, but we learn from the paths we travel. I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful for that. I did want to inquire, as a taxpayer, what part, if Brian might know the answer, what part of the increase in mill rate that we are going to have in order to run our business as thin as we can actually has been laid upon our town as a result of the change in the state's responsiveness to our town? How much of that 2.9?
So that we'll have that question answered after.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's the question I wish to lay before you. I'm not expecting your response to that. Okay? Yep. One last thing, if I may. My understanding is that the other classroom in Barnard that has demonstrated activity like Classroom 7 is Classroom 15. So I took a look at that. The symmetry of the buildings puts Room 15 in the same place architecturally as Room 7. It makes you wonder about, in the construction of the building, what formation structurally had to take place at that point. I'm sure sound and what have you, but they have inherently a propensity to show distress earlier than other parts of the structure. It's just the nature of the joints that are formed in that area from a viewpoint of architecture and a structural assessment. Something we might want to keep. Maybe we can preempt 15 becoming a bigger problem based on what we learned from 7. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate
sir.
it. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak for the council? Anyone else for the first time? For the second time? Sir? One more. Yeah. Anyone else like to speak for the second time? Hearing none, I declare public communications closed. Real quick, councilor communications, item 18, I think it is.
17.
Item 17. Brian, if we could, I don't know, quick. I know you, quick. I know I don't. You don't have to be exact, but what do you think out of the 3.1 mil increase?
So about one of that is dedicated to the debt and the capital assets, and then the remainder of that
So about 2 mils, sir, roughly? 2 mils?
I think that's nice for us to know as a town.
Fair question. Anyone else would like to speak on the council? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Muller. All those in favor? Show of hands. Meeting's adjourned. We will give a 5-minute recess, and then we will come back as the Water Pollution Control Authority. This regular meeting is over. The Water Pollution meeting will start in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
the meeting of the Water Pollution Control Authority to order. Anyone want to grab Ed?
Yeah. Not physically, no.
Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Water Pollution Control Authority, special meeting on Monday, April 16, 2018. Roll call, please.
Here.
With my kiddo. Here.
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 Here. Here.
And we have item 2, approval of minutes, special meeting March 5th, 2018. Do I have a motion? Counselor Muller? Excuse me, Commissioner Muller, seconded by Commissioner Arnone. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing those by a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? We have 10 in favor and 0 against. Special guests, Brian? Or do we wait under items for discussion?
Under items for discussion, and we'll introduce the whole crew.
Item 4, old business. Do we have any old business before the commission? None. Do we have any new business on item 5 for the commission? None. Here comes the fun part. Item 6, items for discussion. Item A, discussion sewer rates. If folks would mind coming up, it would be much appreciated. How you guys doing? Welcome. Good evening. Thanks for being patient. I know it's been a long night for you guys.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Good evening.
So, introductions first.
Sure.
I'm Tom Schwartz, project manager.
And I'm Toby Fetter. I'm a vice president with Woodard and Kern. And our role, just so you know, Tom is project manager for a lot of the work that's going to be going on at the wastewater treatment plant, and I lead the finance and funding consulting practice for the firm overall. So I do this type of work at many communities.
So he'll be doing all the talking.
Okay. So we had prepared a brief presentation for you here. I'm just going to jump right back in, or jump into it. Essentially, the last time Tom and I were here was March 5th. We gave a sort of a short presentation about the needs for a sewer rate update. And in response to that, the WPCA decided to create a subcommittee to work with us on the rate model that was created originally about 5 years ago, when we effectively, you were already an enterprise fund, but effectively went away from the ad valorem rate into a existing, basically volumetric revenue generation method. And we're now at the point where some of the expenses are going to be going up considerably in the coming years, and we need to take a look at the way that you generate revenue to ensure the long-term fiscal sustainability of the WPCA. So on the subcommittee, we had Donna Suzak, Tom Arnone, Joseph Muller, and I believe, Mrs. Davis, you were on the committee as well, although I don't believe we were able to meet with you on this during the subcommittee meetings. So the 2 meetings, we had a first kickoff on the 15th of March. That was sort of to give our take on what your initial options were and get feedback from the subcommittee on what was the type of increases they'd be interested in having us model. And then the second was where we came back on the 26th, presented what we saw for what your options were on actually generating the revenue needed, and then we worked together to refine those options and tweak them in a way that the subcommittee, I believe, came to the agreement was the preferred methodology for changing the sewer rates. So just not to put too fine a point on it, the rate increases needed, well, because of the chart you see. Your current rates, they generate around $4.8 million per year. You need to generate a little over 6.5 next year if you want to continue repaying the deficit fund that's on the general fund. And that's going to escalate up to around $8 million per year by fiscal 2023. The vast majority of the increase being not in operations costs, but being in the cost of the capital work that's going to be done at the facility. The drivers, as I said, it's the collection system improvements, the pump stations, and the large project that's going to be beginning shortly at the actual treatment facility itself. So the 3 things that we took a look at, I'm going to give you, just to give you a brief description of the way the financial model works.
when you're doing a rate setting, effectively it's a two-step dance. The first step is figuring out how much money you need the rates to raise, and that's effectively trying to figure out what do we need to pay for, and in your case, what do we need to pay back to the general fund? And then the second piece is looking at the information available, such as the volumetric bills, the number and size of customers, and things along those lines, figuring out a way to actually generate the revenues needed. So the three things that we basically considered going into this process, the first was a volumetric rate increase. Volumetric rates are effectively, it's the dollars per gallon type of rate, right? You use 100 gallons, you pay X number of dollars. Just as a point of reference, that's the way your current rates work. And it's important to note that each 1% increase in the current rate level would generate around $45,000 to $50,000 per year. Okay? So that's just to give you a sense of where we are, because remember, right now our rates are generating around $4.8 million. Beginning next year, we need them to generate about $2 million more, okay? The second was a fixed charge. Establishing a fixed charge being a perfect example of it is the cost to be connected to an electric utility before you buy your first kilowatt hour every month. You have the $15 to $20 charge to hang the meter off the side of your house. That is a good example of a fixed charge. In truth, when we took a look at all of the utilities in this area, the Enfield WPCA was the only utility in the area that wasn't charging a fixed charge to its customer base. So looking at electric, gas, all of the other utilities that you might use, such as water and such, all have these types of charges. As a point of order, each $1 in monthly fixed charge given your customer base basically comes out to about $195,000 per year. So for every customer with the small meter that you charge $1 per month, that will generate utility-wide about $195,000 to $200,000 per year. And then the final thing that was, at least had been discussed, although I believe was not strongly considered, some of the communities in the area just have a flat residential rate. In truth, where you're so heavily residential in your customer base, you're basically going to get to the same spot whether you use something like that, because you don't have enough industry to shift costs onto. Communities that really do large rollout of residential flat rates oftentimes have a large installed customer base on commercial customers as well. And that, when we take a look at the actual build volumes, that simply wasn't the case, that we could have done that probably very effectively in Enfield. So the goals, as I understand them, and I don't mean to speak for the subcommittee, but what we heard in the first meeting is basically the 5 goals for the rate change was they want to fully fund the operational and the capital costs of the WPCA. They want to repay the deficit to the general fund. As a reminder, the general fund subsidized WPCA operations in the years, I'm not even sure exactly when it accrued, but when we switched over to the new form of billing in 2014, fiscal 2014, the deficit to the general fund at that time was around $3.65 million. A portion of that has since been repaid, but the outstanding balance is still to the tune of $3.3 million that the WPCA owes the general fund of the town. A third criteria that came out of the discussions was we wanted the rates to be fully breaking even at fiscal 19 because of the budgetary issues associated with changes in state practices. If we don't break even in fiscal 19, by definition, we're going to need to borrow more money from the general fund. And considering conditions in town, the idea was that would not be plausible. So one of the goals was we need to make a change immediately so that we will not have a chance of running a deficit in fiscal 19. We need to, over time, build reserves adequate to the needs of a utility the size and utility with the capital requirements that the WPCA has, and we'll take a look at what that means. And then the final was there was a sense among some of the subcommittee members that the current structure wasn't fully equitable because some people were getting in really very, very small quarterly bills in comparison to the overall cost of providing those services. So there's the feeling that some people were not paying their full share. And so we took that into account as well. So coming out of the second meeting, what you see before you is effectively was the consensus of what the subcommittee thought was appropriate for fiscal 19. Basically start a fixed charge. It's monthly or quarterly because most people are going to be billed quarterly, but that just means they'll receive their fixed charge will be for 3 months of that charge, but of $10 per month. And that was going to gradually increase over the 5 years up to $17 per month as the fixed charge. Using meter size factor. So a meter size factoring is, I guess, going back to the electric utility sort of description, it's kind of like a demand charge, right? The larger the customer, the greater the demand they have they have the ability to place on the overall shared assets. And so when you talk about different size customers, they would have a different charge. So a very large customer would pay a multiple of the $10, and those are based on industry standard multipliers that are included in the letter that we issued on the 10th. So in addition to the adoption of the fixed charge, we were also going to escalate the volumetric charges slowly. We were looking at 3% annual escalator on those, and that the idea there was it's going to help to ensure the long-term sustainability, because in the long run, having flat rates in an increasing cost environment is never going to be a solid, sound financial way forward. And then we wanted to make, within your existing rate structure, you have some allowances for well-based customers. Those are people who do not have water meters that we can then bill them volumetrically for. And so the town had made some assumptions. In the case of residential well-based customers, the assumptions were pretty close to correct. In the case of the commercial customers, when we actually went in and did the breakdown on what commercial users are actually using in Enfield, we found that the assumed volumetric use of 45,000 gallons a quarter was off by basically a factor of 2. The actual usage of the average commercial customer in town is around 90,000 gallons a quarter. So we were going to recommend making that change. And in effect, this is the rate table that is within the letter that you've received. It's a little bit dense and numbery, you might say, but in effect, across the top, you'll see the monthly fixed charge, 10, and then going up by $2 per year for the first 3 years, and ending at $17 per month in 2023. And then the volumetric charges for both tiers, escalating for all customer types by 3% annually. Over to the right is a table that actually shows what the monthly charges would be for different meter sizes. Now, the standard that you're looking at there, as I said, those are volumetric multipliers that are, or pardon me, those are multipliers based on industry standards as used by very, very large number of utilities nationwide. So, again, these right here, sort of our goal here was to work with the subcommittee, and what we can say is we think that if the WPCA decides to adopt these changes, we are going to have a rate structure that fully funds your operational costs, fully pays the capital, breaks even in fiscal 19 as we need it to, so that we don't need to be subsidized by the general fund again, and then also will begin to repay that deficit fund to the general fund at a rate of around $205,000 per year. We had originally been looking at a number that was higher than that to increase the speed at which the repayment occurred, but the feeling was that by bringing down some of the fixed charges and the potential increases that would have been needed in volumetrics in order to pay off more aggressively, that extending the duration of the payback period for that deficit fund was preferable in order to keep the rate change to a more reasonable level. And then finally, this is a chart of the projected financial performance of these rates. Again, a little bit dense, but in effect, the bars, the vertical bars that you see, that is the balance of the deficit fund currently to the general fund. And so over the course of the next 5 years, the changes that are recommended herein are going to help you be paying off that deficit fund as well as building a cash reserve roughly equivalent to about $1.6 million, which is, from my perspective, that's a fairly appropriate level. Generally speaking, utilities with a lot of capital assets, you would want to see reserves, meaning cash on hand, at a minimum of maybe 90 days of operational expenses. What you'll see in the red bar on this chart, that's basically 90 days of operating expenses. And so what you can see is over 5 years, we're getting pretty close to having that target be met. And that's a good leaping off point for a long-term success of the utility financially, because what it will mean is you'll have the reserves you need to do your work. You'll be in a position where a lot of work has already been done, and you'll still be having, presumably in the out years, the volumetric rates going up incrementally annually to take care of changes in operational costs. So next steps as we see them, and feel free to tell me if I'm wrong here. Obviously, the first step was the WPCA memo that was issued on the 10th. Looks like all of you have it. I believe the WPCA has to propose the new rates by May 15th and hold a public hearing sometime in either May or June. And then the rate changes would be adopted effective July 1, which is the first day of fiscal 19. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So over to Town Manager, if you could excuse me on the deficit spending. Okay, so this one bothered me through the whole thing, and I wanted to just have it forgiven, because this is kind of like the past sins of councils before us. And the date that this started, just so people can get a feel for how long ago this was 06 to 08, is that correct? So as far back as 06 and 08, the councils at the time, town manager at the time, decided that we were going to go in deficit spending, and that's an artificial low tax rate that we were allowing at the time to accumulate for us. So even 20 years stretching this out still is at $200,000 a year, which would make a significant decrease in the rate system if we didn't have to pay that money. That was, I still don't, and that's a finance question that we can't forgive it. Probably have to go bankrupt to do it, but it's a shame that money is going to have to actually help boost these to do the right thing today for something that was done so many years ago. And that just, I just want the ratepayer to understand that a good portion of this increase is mistakes from the past. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Suzak, and, Commissioner Suzak, then Commissioner Denny.
I guess we were looking at how, I guess, that deficit occurred and what it looked like from like 2004 to today. We could get, I know everybody's been busy, but when we get a chance to look at that, because at one time there was not a deficit.
There's a surplus.
There was a surplus. And I guess we kind of, and this, I agree with Tom. I mean, they were under the mill rate, and a mill rate was set for them. It's sort of like we set a budget, and we let them spend more money because they had to run the department. But we didn't take. I know it's very confusing how we caused, really for no other better word, a debt to occur to a utility that, as Tom's pointed out numerous times, should be separate. And I will say, Tom, I think that subcommittee was an excellent idea. I think I feel really comfortable with what we're presenting here, but I agree with Tom that that debt's making us crazy.
Commissioner Denny.
I've been talking to people around town. They've been calling me. People know that this is coming and so forth and so on. One of the questions that they all have is, can we not bill on a quarterly basis, and either twice a year or once a year would be more. I don't know how everybody would think, but a lot of people are thinking not a quarterly bill. Will that work? Or what's that?
Save on billing costs.
Save on paying the check, save on all that grief and aggravation of trying to find it. Some people are finding that, some of it's not it's a minimum payment that they're paying, and they're putting it aside and then forgetting it, and then they're getting charged 40 cents
Or you just doesn't
interest.
fit in anyone's budget. I
You
agree.
know what I'm saying? Would it be possible, or will we become that much more of people being delinquent and not paying the thing? I don't.
So my only thought is, well, a couple of thoughts. I'm unaware of any public utilities that charge on an annualized basis anywhere in the U.S. at this point. Most utilities are moving actually towards a monthly billing cycle, but most utilities' bills are significantly higher than Enfield's, to be blunt. I wouldn't encourage a switch to twice per year, and the sole reason is simply from a cash flow perspective. It becomes much more difficult to, A, get out past due notices to people in a way that can bring in the revenue, but if you only have two bursts of revenue coming in, it becomes quite a bit harder to project where you're going to end the fiscal cycle. Could you do it? Certainly, it's within your purview. I'm not sure the savings would be that tremendous in comparison to some of the operational drawbacks that I could foresee.
I wasn't questioning about a savings situation. I was questioning only because of people are more interested in paying it once or twice a year totally, rather than a savings cost to us or the maintenance of it.
Sure.
If I can, because we did touch
Commissioner
this, to help go on that, because we talked about this in the subcommittee, and I think the finance director had a reason for that. Wasn't it because we can adjust the bills quicker if there's a adjustment problem within the monthly, but within that cycle?
That's also a factor involved in doing it, yes. We would be able to meet any adjustment needs, any issues that the homeowner had, any issues they have, we can address them faster.
Yeah, on a quarter, and you also said too that the billing really, yeah, I hate to get you to come up here, but you also had said something that the billing, the cost wasn't that prohibitive as opposed to what we save in administratively, like you said, keeping those adjustments that are more time consuming than the time it takes to put the bill together, if that makes.
I don't, I mean, I think some of those conversations might have been had with my predecessor. I'm not familiar exactly with all of them, but I mean, in general, we would probably, I mean, I'd have to talk with our billing agency right now to find out exactly what what kind of savings or anything like that could be involved in switching from a monthly, or they do a lot of billing statewide, and they would be able to provide a better answer as far as what kind of benefits we could reap from saving, from going to a semi-annual bill as opposed to quarterly. I think, in my own personal case, I think I would rather stay quarterly rather than, or go to monthly rather than switch to a semi-annual or an annual. But that's just my own personal preference, I think.
Could you bring us back the pros and cons before we do this public hearing of that?
Yes, I could do that. Yes.
Commissioner Suzak.
I think it's tied to the water bill. The water company bills quarterly, and that's how we get our numbers, and that's really why I think that was the coordination effort, because all of us don't get bills like January, March, June, September. We get them whatever it falls with our water bills. So we're all on this, we have this big revolving thing that's going on in the town of Enfield because everybody's on a different cycle. So I understand where people are confused. I mean, multi-property owners, they're getting them, every month. It's because it's whatever that water bill cycle is, that's how we're getting billed. So it is a confusing issue because you don't count on it like our tax bill. You know it's July and January, and you're all set. But here, it's because of the tying to the water bill, and it comes at a staggered time after the water bill. So we're all
And if you own more property,
right.
you get more than one bill that quarter.
Yeah, 12 of them, I write. 12
Yeah,
checks.
right. So, I just, that was phone calls and proposals that heard from my constituents.
Just as a point of reference, just because we bill you quarterly doesn't mean you can't pay annually. Just food for thought.
That would solve the issue if you prepay.
All donations.
Councilor Casati.
I know you were talking about, the cash flow with the quarterly payments. Is there if we're even thinking about quarterly, is there a difference with the monthly payment, making monthly payments towards this? Is this would it cost more if we had monthly bills on this?
Essentially,
I mean, if we're looking at, you want to have flow of money all the time. I mean, 1 month
right,
is
but
better than 3
our
or 6.
our bills, our account holders are actually divided up into 3 groups. Okay, so we bill every month for a different group of people. Okay, so you'd have, so group 1 gets billed in January, April, July, and October. Okay, group 2 will get billed February, May. I have to go through the courthouse, but the stagger them that way. So there is monthly. There's monthly billing, and it's really a monthly cash flow that's coming in anyway, right now.
The only other thing you are, as Commissioner Suzak pointed out, I mean, you're at the mercy of the water companies here, because
Right.
they're the ones doing the meter reading that you're basing your bills off of.
Right.
It's not a municipal water utility, so you're not the ones who get to determine meter reading schedules.
Correct. So they're doing it. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Arno.
So I'd like to see that 2 times a year. Other towns do it, and they have water companies, and they do it twice a year. So I've always had a problem with that. I was here with the original debate on that, and I know Joe, again, he's not here tonight. I just would love to debate him a little bit on this one, but he was really, you wanted that quarterly payment, so it was more affordable for the ratepayer, because you got that smaller chunk. So, but I always had the other argument that it's just an expense that we don't need to have the paper and that's why I'd like to see what the price would be and put this to rest finally on a monthly, quarterly, and a once a year with 2 bills that you're responsible to pay, like your taxes, the way we do our tax structure now. So you pay it twice a year, but you're getting one single bill.
What about thirds? Every 4 months.
Well, it's all about how much they're going to charge you to do the service.
In the end, I mean,
Yeah, so,
Right, but I mean, at least it gives you a little, every 4 months gives the payer a little break. I mean, the point is, I get it. I think to Councilor Denny's point, I gotta admit, this bill doesn't fit into my budget. And so, I mean, it's just awkward. Who has a quarter, unless you're a business, most of us pay on a semi-annual basis. So, I mean, if you need the cash flow, why not do it every 4 months? Do it thirds of the year. And then you can do the 3 groups.
I think
the 3 groups you talked about, you got a different bill going on every third.
anything you do that changes you from the billing schedules of the water companies you're reliant upon is going to give you a data handling.
But I'm not even worried about, I'm not worried about the water, I'm more worried about the payer. That's what I'm worried about. Sorry, go ahead, Councilor Sakala.
So I guess my only comment on that is I would caution against sending out bigger, albeit fewer, bigger bills at the same time that we're raising rates. People are going to freak out. If we want to, if we want to go to semi-annually every 4 months, I don't care, every 5.5 months, it doesn't matter to me. We should not do it once. Why right now we're raising the rates.
Right.
I would absolutely be against that because people are going to be shell-shocked anyway. So to give them fewer bills, but it's bigger, not a good idea. That's my 2 cents.
I apologize, Councilor Nona at the floor. Go ahead.
So my point is that if we can get a billing that's less expensive, we can save on the rate thus lowering the rate. That's my only point. If it's less expensive to do it one way, because this is, we got to get it kind of surgical in here. And another elephant in the room is the payment, how many people are not paying their bill, and putting the burden on everyone that is paying their bills.
Yeah.
So you've got $1.4 million outstanding right now in people that have not paid their wastewater treatment bill. And, our tax rate, we're getting back 98% in our tax rate. Is that right? 97, 98 on the town side.
Yes.
The utilities, unfortunately, are down in the lower 90s, but where we are now is in, my goodness, it's in the, got to be the 70s or collection rate. And
I suspect a little bit higher than the 70s, because the 1.45 million in arrears has accumulated ever since you switched over to the volumetric rates.
Right.
And at least from the standpoint of an assessment we did leading into this process, we took a look at basically where you were at the end of fiscal 17, which is around 1.45, and then we took a look in mid-February, was it? Whether or not that number had changed. And the nice thing is that number's no longer going up, which means that the liens process that's been established is beginning to bring the money in, and I suspect most of that outstanding money will come in over the course of the next couple cycles. And in fact, the fiscal projection in the presentation assumes that over the course of the next 5 years, we're going to bring in 75% of that outstanding money in as basically cash on hand.
So again, and I'll end it here, the importance of us meeting more often is the importance of knowing every time we know that they're collecting more. We know they're collecting more, and we can adjust, we can look at our rates better because we know because we've only estimated how much we assume we're going to collect. And that was part of the rates that was set today.
That's right.
We could collect more, we could collect less. So we need to be fiscally on it.
And in truth,
Thank you.
while there is a 5-year presentation of rates within this recommendation, I mean, all communities take a look at rates every couple of years, because
Right.
if you have a fundamental change in demand patterns, for example, we know that over the course of the last 4 years, the amount of water that's being metered and billed as sewer has been going down, and that's for a couple of different reasons. One was the irrigation adjustment. One has been presumably people putting in new irrigation meters on their homes that are deduct meters so that they aren't paying for all of the water that goes on the lawn as sewer. So these are things that need to be looked at, because there is no silver ball where I can tell you what the change in demand pattern is going to be. We make our best estimate based off historical patterns, and then we need to sort of re-true up the calculation a couple years from now. That's pretty common for almost all communities. Every 2 or at the most every 3 years, you go in, you take a look at how well your projection worked, how close you were, and do you still feel confident with the?
Shouldn't this be an annual? I mean, this is going to be part of our audit, right? We should be looking at this on an annual basis on every 2-3 years. Yeah. This should be part of the audit. I mean,
Our auditors are not going to be looking at,
well, maybe just our reserves and what we have on hand, cash on hand. I mean, that's what we better have them look at it. I mean, I guess that's my recommendation if we're going to ask people for a significant increase. I mean, I'm just saying.
everything would be
of our auditors. I guess that's a suggestion for me to you when we have the new auditing firm once we're through this year. This has to be. I mean, we have to be able to report this to the public. That's just my opinion.
The Water Pollution Control Authority, this fund is included in our annual financial audit. I mean, it is. So they look at our, and if you look at our
comment from
CAFR.
the auditors that we have reserves or we're collecting, whatever it may be, that I know auditors make observations when they're doing the books. This is something they should be observing, in my opinion. Just saying.
We could put that
Not putting you
in
on the
the,
spot, but I think this is something that has to be part of it. Sorry, I have a couple questions if folks don't mind. So you mentioned earlier about some changes to the state that affect why we have to be break even. Can you allude on that, what those changes are?
It's nothing with the state. It has to do with because of the loss of state funding to Enfield. There was the sense that if you don't break even in fiscal 19, by definition, the general fund will need to lend additional money to the enterprise fund. And given the fiscal situation in Enfield, that was considered to be.
And break even what is the definition of break even?
Bring in as much revenue as the money you spend.
Okay. Is that including
That's not paying back the debt, sir.
And it's not including capital expenditures?
It does, yes.
It does, okay.
Has to, absolutely.
And so if we do have reserves, again, can we invest these reserves?
Yeah.
No.
No, we cannot. Okay. And I think on Donna's question, there was a surplus back many years ago in the Water Pollution Fund. I don't know if it's, with all the things going on, but it might be at least some point, do we be able to have a little bit of a answer on what happened?
So in conversations with John about that period of time, that information exists, but it exists on the old system, and so it's not an easy
Understand,
port
yeah.
from
Yep.
old to new. So he is going to attempt to try and log into the old system and decipher that information, but where we are and what our current priorities are.
No, fair,
Right.
fair, yeah, appreciate it. So
Sure.
I'm sorry, ad valorem, explain ad valorem for everybody.
Essentially, the water pollution control facility was operated in the same manner as our
Mill rate, or whatever our mill rate was.
Right. It was funded as a special revenue fund. Okay, so it's the same as the social services fund or the EMS fund. They had their own revenue sources, and the town makes up the difference. In answer to your question, or provide some light on it, we had a fund balance in 2003, at the end of fiscal year 2003, of approximately $1,009,000. And that next period, from 2004 through 2008, we used essentially $4.8 million.
That was when it was under the town budget, correct? So we didn't
That's
establish a separate water pollution control.
Well, I believe it was a separate
That
water
mean-
pollution
but I'm
control
saying the
fund.
funds could have been, so let's just say that some of the funds were in CIP at that point. They could have been diverted from CIP to somewhere else because it was no?
No.
So meaning, was it all part of the town's overall budget?
So the way that it would have worked is that, let's say, just for the sake of simple math, there's 10 mills on the books.
Yeah.
Okay, so water pollution control would have shown up on my left, your right, and it needed 2 mills.
Right.
So the money got collected and it got shifted over. And so it was a separate fund. The money went to the separate fund, but the money came from tax.
Right.
So at some point in time, the fund on the left accumulated a balance, and so the tax rate collectively was not increased to cover the actual operating expenses. And so what happened was the money was depleted and depleted and depleted and depleted until such time that that tax suddenly had to be raised again, and that's where that effectively that's where that deficit would have come from over time. And so that's why it looks nebulous in the fact that you had one large tax rate, some of which should have been assigned to fund pollution control, but might not have been assigned to pollution control because they thought they had sufficient money or because they thought the tax rate was high enough. And when the money came up short, it's just tax dollars, right? So sure, it's on the right side, so just move it over to the left side because it's all tax
Well,
dollars.
That's the point. So I think the Commissioner's Denny's point. So a lot of folks are confused when we established, again, we used to take great pride when this was in our mill rate. And then we, for the reasons that had to be moved over to a fee, part of the public hearing, I want to make sure we're clear on a presentation, a slide where it says, why we went to a fee. And then I also want to show how much money we've actually gotten in grants. So I know that's the whole point of it, was to have a fee schedule so we can, again, open up the grants on the EPA or whatever it may be. I don't think, and I apologize if we've reported it somewhere, I haven't seen it. So I just want to, so people understand the reason why the change was made coming from their general, and I understand this is, history, but it's good to revisit history here. Sure. And to show people, look, the reason why we got to go a fee system, it's no longer, for folks who've been around here like myself for a while, we used to take great pride it was in our mill rate. Here's the reasons why it had to be changed. And again, oh, by the way, here's some grants we've already applied for and gotten, and maybe even what they've gone to. And here's ones we hope to apply for if that's out there.
Sure. So, operating from memory here, I believe, so the issue was in order to be eligible for some of the grants through the Connecticut DEEP, I believe the overall amount of the grants that's going to be awarded when the construction of the wastewater treatment plant upgrades is completed, is around $5.5 to $6 million in grant funding that the town won't have to repay. It's effectively forgiven portion of the loan, so to speak, that the town would not have been eligible for. They kept the ad
So
valorem
that's
system.
important to remind everyone. I think that's been lost, that's the reason why, the main reason why they made the change at the time, that council. That's
right.
And it's important because I don't think most folks get that.
Right.
And they still, I mean, we call it a fee, they think it's a tax. So again, I think it just remind people, again, as we go through education on some of this.
Yep.
Here's the reasons why we've done some of the things we've done.
Absolutely, but I mean, to Brian's earlier point, I mean, I believe in 2013 was the year that I actually worked with Lynn Nenny when we were establishing the original fees, or charges, pardon me. I believe the ad valorem rate for WPCA was, I believe, 0.93 mil on the overall rate, and that nominally went away the following year. You know, came out of the overall numerator, so to speak, of the town's overall mill rate.
With the chart with the public hearing, can we have just a simple math? If you're paying X, here's what's going to happen. I mean, I want to be clear to everyone. I think a lot of people just make the math simple.
Okay.
If you're paying, I don't know, $100 a year right now, whatever it may be, here's what. I think it's important to show people what the direct impact of what they're paying. You know, and I think and I also think we need to be a little more clear on what we're getting for the.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see in pretty detail what we're doing so folks understand what they're purchasing.
Yep.
You know, again, most people are reasonable as long as they understand what they're spending their money on. And I just don't. And I think Councilor or Commissioner Arnone's right. I don't think we give enough information on this, which is our fault. So I'm not blaming you guys, which is our fault. And the last thing I'll stop. Last time you were here, I asked you if we got it in writing from the state what they're going to pay us. Have we got it in writing what they're going to pay us?
Prison.
Prison, excuse me.
I have not seen it in writing, no.
So hopefully we can get it in writing before we set a new rate schedule, or at least have an idea. It's pretty big.
I can't
pretty
make
big,
policy
pretty
for
big
the Bureau of Prisons, but
Well, can we-
you're absolutely right. It is a
pretty big part of this whole equation.
It is. It is the debt service. So there's quite a bit of capital spending that's going to be done on a cash finance basis for the next couple of years. The debt service from the actual prison upgrades doesn't really start rolling on until fiscal '22. Maybe late fiscal '21, but I doubt it. I'll bet it won't.
My
get,
concern, we break even in 2019, and the prison goes, again, instead of they're going to full, capacity, and then we're back into a deficit situation, or we have an issue because they have more flow than what they were paying us.
Well, exactly. If changes occur at the prison, obviously they're a large. They aren't just a contributor on capital. They're a large ratepayer as well, right?
They're undercharging us based on their current flow, which we know they move people out of there because they're redesigning some of those whatever apartments, whatever you want to call them, prison, and they have every intention of putting people back in there. So that's my concern, is that we're trying to break even, and we're asking taxpayers to do what they're supposed to do, and the state, just because we need to, if we don't get it in writing, we need to put it in a record. The question was asked, and we didn't get it in writing. I don't care. Let's put it on part of the record so people understand that we understand the impact that that's going to have if we're trying to break even in 19, which is, again, a goal I understand. But I have a feeling that I'm worried that their flow will be different than what they're saying.
Well, my understanding is indeed it was put in writing several months ago of the town's
I'm not putting on you.
expectation.
I'm just saying that's something as a town we should be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because of this being a concern, it's a valid concern that you have. I just don't know a way that we actually get the state to come out and give you
Understand.
ironclad
Understand.
guarantee.
Yeah, but there is, as we're talking tonight about the impact the state has had, there's another part where we're having major impact on the state not living up to its obligations. And I remember when I was on the council in the 90s, they owed us pilot money that we sued them for, and it took them like 10 years to pay us the pilot money they owed us. So I'd rather have this in writing and part of the record up front, and if we don't get the money, but again, we're very cognizant of what the moving parts here, and I appreciate you being honest about this stuff. I'm not trying to give you a hard time here.
No,
But
you're not.
this is a tough night if you're a taxpayer in the town of Enfield, so I appreciate it. Sorry. Anyone else, any commissioners have any other questions? And were we setting the public hearing tonight?
Yep, there's a resolution in here.
The resolution in here.
Gentlemen, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. All right, we have a resolution. And so, let's make sure I'm following the agenda. B, Resolution stating setting a public hearing for the 2018-9 sewer fee and rates. Resolution regarding the setting of a public hearing for 2018-19 sewer service fee and rates. Whereas the Enfield Water Pollution Control Authority values the opinions and comments of its constituents, and whereas in accordance with Section 86-52F, the Enfield Water Pollution Control Authority must hold a public hearing on a proposed sewer service fees and rates for the upcoming fiscal year. Now therefore be resolved, the Enfield Water Pollution Control Authority shall conduct a public hearing in the Enfield Town Council Chambers at Town Hall, 820 Enfield Street, Monday, May 7, 2017, at 6:50 PM on the proposed sewer service fees and rates for fiscal year 2018-9, prepared on April 9, 2018, the Town Manager's Office. So moved. Moved by Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Arnone. And I don't want to belabor this meeting. How can we have it at 6:50? This place is going to be packed. I mean, I'm sorry. Can we do this at 6 o'clock?
You can set the time at whatever time that you feel is
I mean, we're
most
going to give
appropriate.
people 10 minutes, and I don't know. This is, I mean, personally, this is one, and if no one shows, no one shows, but 30 minutes? I think we need to compromise. 6:50 is not enough time. Sorry.
6:30.
6:30. We have amendment from 6:50 to 6:30. We have amendment by Counselor Falk. We have a second by Counselor Denny. Any discussion on the amendment to the motion? Hearing none, show of hands on the amendment, right, first. All those in favor of the amendment, moving to 6:30. All those opposed, we have 10 in favor, 0 against. Now in the main motion, amended to 6:30 PM. Any discussion on the overall motion as amended? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Arnone.
4.
Commissioner Sakala.
4.
Commissioner Crisati.
4.
Commissioner Davis.
4.
Commissioner Denny.
4.
Commissioner Falk.
4.
Chairman Ludwig.
4.
Commissioner Muller.
4.
Vice Chairman Suzak.
4.
Commissioner Ungary.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Any miscellaneous items for the Water Pollution Control Authority?
Oh,
None?
we want the bids. We haven't seen that yet.
A motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Counselor Muller, seconded by Counselor Ungar. All those in favor? 10 in favor, 0 against.
We have to have another facility.
Yes, we do.